The board has convened after closed session where we took no reportable action. And so now we're in open session, and we need to approve the agenda order. However, I would like to make a motion to make a change in the agenda order. I actually have to step out for a short period of time while I go over to the Palo Pops concert and listen to my son, who has a solo tonight.
Yeah.
Very excited. Anyway, so I'm going to propose that we move some items. I'm going to pass my proposal down here so that no one's confused as to what I'm proposing.
So nice.
Okay. Oh, I might have to share.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Okay, so what I'm proposing is that we move the agenda order so that item B now becomes the 2015 California School Boards Association Delegate Assembly election. So moving that from E to B, and moving item B to E, which is the Enrollment Management Advisory Committee charge.
Because you'd like to be back for that.
And my reasoning is, I would like to make sure I'm here for actions that we have to take, and that way I will be.
For E, right?
Yes.
Oh, no, but C as well.
We're not taking action on that, so I probably won't be here for that discussion.
C is discussion.
Oh,
I wanna make sure I'm here.
Is only discussion
Discussion
this time?
first.
It's discussion tonight.
Okay, well, good.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So this is my motion. Will anybody be willing to second that motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes, and Heidi will take over when I step out.
And I
Oh, I'm
think
sorry,
the
Ms.
man
Emberling.
E- Timer.
That's okay.
A heartbeat away from the presidency. Yeah, good. Thank you, thank you. Well, first and foremost, we want to recognize and honor one of our extraordinary world language teachers. I'd like to ask Ann Jensen to join me at the podium. So I know many of you know Ann. I just first met her here. I first met her this fall. I've just been so impressed with her energy, and though she's getting a Lifetime Achievement Award, it's like you've just started teaching. You bring that even to the committee meetings. We have these world language committee meetings I've been attending, and Ann always takes the lead in those, and energy and new ideas, and so this is really a special recognition. She has received the Hal Wingard Lifetime Achievement Award, and she's not done yet, from the California Language Teachers Association. And Ann, in honor of that and recognition of your service, the Board of Education would like to present you with this certificate of recognition for your commitment to educational excellence and your enduring commitment. And the receipt of the Hal Wingard Lifetime Achievement Award from the California Language Teachers Association, dated February 10th, 2015. Ann Jensen, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
I have just a couple things to say. I'm really deeply humbled for this award because I worked very closely with Hal Wingard. He was a person I admired and worked with for a number of years, and I'm just so thrilled to follow in his footsteps and even consider that I had done half of what he possibly had done. He was an amazing teacher, and he was a great inspiration for me and many of my colleagues. But I also want to accept this award on behalf of all the world language teachers in our district, because every day they're out there sharing their passion for language and culture with their students. And you'd be amazed at the wonderful instruction that you would see if you visited Gunn or Pally or Jordan, Terman, JLS. They're a great group of people to work with. So I'm just a small part of a great world language program that we have here. And I'd like to also thank you, the board, for your support, the administration, and the community who really sees the benefits of world language education, and knowing that seeing the world through a different perspective is such a valuable skill to have. So I really appreciate our community as well. And I would like to invite all of you to the last week in February. We have our annual International Week Festival at Gunn High School, and I'll be sending you invitations and list of activities that we're going to have. We always eat very well. Yes. Which, because language and culture and food all go together.
Yes,
so thank you again for all your support. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Ann.
think we should.
Here we go.
Yeah.
I'm glad we put you on first, yeah.
We doing photos? Okay.
Let's get everybody in here.
No, I get Monsieur Lozier instead.
Oh, okay.
Across the hall, it's fine.
There you go.
And I worked at the bus committee years ago, and you were a great introduction to committee work because you were so enthusiastic.
Thank you so much.
Merci.
Backwards, you almost went down this.
Great. Good, well, thank you. That's a great way to start. Also, in your packet, you have special recognition of some of our students who are receiving presidential scholars. And about 3 o'clock this afternoon, we received the National Merit finalists from Gunn. We don't have them from Palo yet, so we're going to have to wait until next meeting. That just came in. But the presidential scholars were certainly worthy of recognition. A group that I continually forget to thank because they just are so part of the fabric here, but I want to rectify an error. The last meeting when I talked about the partners that helped out in times of tragedy and are there for us all the time as our PTA and PTA council. And I know Susan is not here tonight. She stayed for close to midnight last meeting, and before she was at our board meeting this morning. And just want to express our appreciation. And we talk about being a collective community. I think they are one of these ties that binds us all together. Just a couple remarks. As you know, over the past 2 weeks, we've talked about how we need to come together as a community to deal with the issues related to mental health. And I know we'll have a few speakers tonight talking about that. And how to take care of our adolescents to assure that they get treatment at the first signs of symptoms, that they know about the suicide prevention hotline. And it's something we all need to do our part. And that includes the school district. So as you heard, as you probably read, we have taken steps to make sure that the homework policy was disseminated to every teacher, through every principal, and with comments in a readable manner. I actually received far more positive emails from teachers than negative ones. Maybe some were keeping it to themselves, but I really appreciated that several of the teachers just went out of the way and say thank you. We appreciate the clarity, we appreciate the comments. We had heard about this, we hadn't had the chance to read it, and a couple of others said, hey, this is old news, everybody knows it. And my response was, well, the evidence would indicate otherwise. So in any case, it is in everyone's hands now, and we're excited to see that the homework generally seems to be posted regularly. We've seen some changes right away. Similarly, got many positive responses from the community, from Max Mail, and though it seems the part about the schools got the most attention, there was a paragraph in there about the importance of parenting as well. One thing we learned last night from our student forum at Gunn, we are in this together, and parents have responsibilities as well about not overscheduling their students. And students have their own responsibilities about with their peer pressure, and that the idea is you're not competing for grades to beat someone out. So we'll have further discussions at our community conversation February 25th. Our planning meeting is next week, and we're trying to set this up so that we have time allotted to all the issues. So we're not going to have 2 hours of just school issues, not 2 hours of just mental health issues, not 2 hours of just student issues, not 2 hours of just parent issues. We're going to really work and plan this out so we have the whole community perspective. I do want to thank, a similar vein, our board president and board member Godfrey for attending the student forum. Rose, you hosted it. You did a fabulous job. We started out with 20 students and we ended with over 60. I didn't get the final count, 60 or 70. I think everyone had something to say. So Rose, thank you for organizing that.
She runs a tight ship, too.
She what?
You run a tight ship.
You
think
do
that's
run a tight
fantastic.
ship.
That's good.
You have 2 minutes. I'm gonna give you a 30-second warning.
What was it, 2 hours over, 3 hours over?
Yeah, 7:30 to 10, a little after 10. But some great ideas from the students, and we need to wait to make sure that the student voice is heard along with the faculty voice, the parent voice, the community voice. But we certainly, it was a very informative evening, and I think we have some actionable steps coming out of that. Earlier today, we had our presentation. We had another board meeting. This is our second board meeting of the day. We heard the WASC reports from the high schools today, both from the coordinators, the WASC coordinators, and the principals. And I know they all have other obligations tonight, so they're not here. But we were really thrilled with what we heard, with the alignment with the district vision and goals. I really had to hand it to the WASC teams to have goals related to consistency in curriculum instruction and assessment, goals related to the issues around the achievement gap and opportunities and access for talent development for all students. An alignment around a cultural shift that is both inclusive and evidence-based. The realization that you can be if there's going to be change, you really need to navigate it, steer it, manage it. And this cultural shift just doesn't happen by itself. I was very impressed with both the multiplicity and specificity of the metrics in these reports. And I just want to lend that there is a sense of urgency here, that these plans aren't going to sit on the desk for 6 years. They are data-driven, they are actionable, and they're urgent. And we urged them to get working at 12:02 as we adjourned at 12 o'clock. We gave them a couple-minute break there. But to start having those tough conversations and important conversations, whether it's something as specific as bell schedules or as broad as creating a culture that supports innovation. And so I was very enthusiastic and very pleased to see that. And really, we had to commend the entire, the WASC teams, the entire roster of supporters and helpers who put these voluminous reports. Where are my voluminous reports? So any of you looking to do your exercise tonight, we have about 10 pounds of weights right here. Let's see. As a follow-up to that, we are gathering the questions from the board members. Several were emailed, several were presented today. Those will all be in one place and answered over the course of, I hope, the next few weeks. Let me close on with just a couple slides and of events this last week. And the first one being, ta-da, the next one being, there we go. We had a successful Gun TEDx conference about 3 weeks ago that the students organized themselves. The Palo TEDx conference was yesterday. And there was an organizing team. We had the RISE tutoring with our VTP students at Nixon to support these students and hope to have this RISE summer program operational as well. And getting along well at Hayes and Escondido. As I'm out visiting, I kind of like to take some pictures of how they deal with student conflict, doing the walk the talk there at Hayes. And I love the manners at lunch. Chew and don't talk. I will stay seated and not play crazy games. That's probably good advice for all of us. And of course, probably the highlight of last week was Heavenly Bandstand. I know everybody had a chance to go. And yes, that is our principal, Dr. Herman, in the lower left, complete with leather jacket and white T-shirt. Our faculty judges, 2 out of 3 who were quite talented singers, and Paul, who could at least keep rhythm. And extraordinary student and staff and a cast of over 100. I think we have one more picture from the bandstand. That's not Elvis himself. That's actually one of our teachers, Mr. Brown, up there, and a whole lineup of faculty there. I wrote Bill a note afterwards and said, I only wish Spangenberg had held 9,000 instead of 900. It just came at the right time to lift everybody up and elevate people literally off their feet, out of their seats, for the music, the dancing, the connection with the students and staff had together. It was really something special. Continuing, speaking of something special, our Barron Park Makerspace. Those are kindergartners programming robots on your left. If you need to feel inadequate, they will help you do that. It's remarkable what these young people can do. And we talk in our mission statement about, or vision statement about nurturing curiosity and creativity. This is the center of it. And Smita has just completed a comprehensive evaluation that I think will help support expanding these to other schools. And that was a parent volunteer on the other side. And this is also expanded outside the makerspace into the classroom. This is one of the 5th grade classrooms doing a more advanced engineering project with his students there, including, not pictured, our 2 full inclusion students in this class. And I had a chance to visit this and just was so impressed with what the students take away from the Maker Studio. So the idea of invention and organizing and making, and again, having curiosity, creativity, applied things happen everywhere around the school, and ideally outside, is a reality. Just a couple more. Our writing workshop at Barron Park, not only do we involve teachers and students, that's a Southwest pilot on the right. Barron Park, as I like to encourage to be incubators of innovation, has this incredible, where they bring in pilots from Southwest, and the kids write letters that she passes out on the plane, and people on the plane write letters back to the kids. And I've never seen anything like this. And I go, well, how come nobody knows about this? It's just phenomenal. And the writing that the kids do, and how they're writing for a completely kind of random audience. And the things the passengers write back to the kids are just so personal and so special. Yeah, this is Pilot Wendy. I don't even know her last name, but keep going. And then, reading and writing Escondido, and that, you can't really see that slide on the left. That's all in Spanish in our 1st graders in the Spanish immersion program. And I think that is it. Oh, yeah. Reading and writing doesn't look like it does when we were in school, thank goodness. Okay, thank you. And that will conclude that almost will conclude my report. Kindergarten through high school, whether it's a dedicated art class or I really can't see this as a high school math class. And the young woman on the left, while I thought she was taking notes with her marker, that's really an intricate portrait that she drew with a marker. And I said, wow, that's really good. She goes, yeah, I understand the math. Don't worry, Dr. McGee. But it was, again, just an amazing spectrum of what we have to offer. So thank you. And that concludes my report.
Well, thank you, Dr. McGee. We'll go to our student board members.
My turn to go first.
Yeah.
So Dr. McGee stole a lot of my thunder there with the choir show. Can't talk about it as much. I don't have lovely photos, but it was a very fun event, and it's great to see our football stars up there dancing and singing solos, and really shows how inclusive our community is. Along with dancing, we had our Pally rally before the Pally gun basketball game. I will not talk about the basketball game, but I will talk about the rally. It was a lot of fun. That features some of the senior boys performing a cheerleading routine, which is always a hoot, along with our dance team and cheer team, and acknowledging our winter sports. And then last night, we had our student forum that I thought was very successful. We had in total probably around 60 students there, 2 board members, our principal, a student representative, and a couple of our vice principals there. And kids in general seemed to think it was a nice to be heard and a very good conversation that went on. Yeah, that's it from me.
RSB has been pretty busy as well. We went to, half of our ASB class went to Gunn's YES program this Saturday, which was cool. We also sold 150 valograms, which are being delivered tomorrow, which, and that just essentially fundraises money for our student government course. Our Sadie's dance is still scheduled for February 20th this month. We also sent out a prom fundraising letter to parents to try to raise money so we can help reduce the cost of prom and possibly provide some free tickets to students who need it. We also had a Pally Loves Gun Day where everybody at Pally, some kids at Pally wore red and black, and we took pictures on the quad to show our support for gun. And today we also hosted our second club day of the year, and we had 40 clubs participate along with 13 new clubs.
Wow,
Yeah.
outstanding.
I'm going to add
Good
a
job.
little thing. I was really interested to hear that the choir had their own prom this past weekend.
I did not know that.
And they had it at Lucy Stern, and I think there's probably a lot of these activities that we don't always know about. But I think it's important for the community to know that our kids are doing more than just the core activities, that they're taking them further than that. Okay. Our next item is the approval of the consent calendar. These items are considered routine and will be approved in one action without discussion. If a board member requests an item be removed from the consent calendar or a citizen wishes to speak to an item, it will be considered under action. Do I
I
have,
move that we approve the consent calendar.
I second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes, and we move on to open forum. And I have some cards here. I have 5 cards. The first card is Shashank Joshi. The second one is Corey Samuz. And a third is Mark Vicenti. If you can just get ready to speak.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm Shashank Joshi. I'm a parent. I'm a child psychiatrist at Lucille Packard Children's Hospital. And perhaps most relevant to the next couple months, I'm a Little League manager. And I'm here to represent the HERD Alliance, which is the Healthcare Alliance in Response to Adolescent Depression and Related Conditions, which was formed in 2009-10 after we had our first or most recent set of tragedies prior to what we're going through now. And I'm here to express support for what Dr. McGee and the board have begun in terms of undertaking an approach to this that is comprehensive, that acknowledges that before a young person becomes desperate and considers taking their own life, that there are a variety of things, in addition to the mental health issues that have been highlighted that occur in the vast majority of teens and adults for that matter, not only locally but across the country, that we acknowledge that that is not the whole story, that mental health and depression and all of these things we have been talking about are important. 80 to 90% of the time, there have been signs. However, we know from national studies now that when we solely focus on messages such as depression is a treatable medical condition and suicide is preventable, while that's very important, that's not enough. Not all depression responds to initial or even secondary treatment. Not every suicide will be prevented. As is true for other teen suicides and suicide clusters in California and around the country, environmental factors must be examined closely and are often highly influential in any student's well-being. Peer, social, family, school, other influences can be protective when they are rolled out in an intentional way. On the other hand, if we don't pay attention to these environmental influences, if they are a negative influence in any teen's life, they can be very influential in developing psychological distress. Particularly if, as we are living in a high-achieving culture where a teen's self-worth may be perceived by that teen to be measured solely in terms of grades, sports performance, or elite college acceptance, we can increase the risk of psychological distress depending on the situation. So this is why in the HERD Alliance we're very encouraged by the recent communications from Dr. McGee and from the board to take a careful look at the school-based and district-wide social and environmental factors that can promote resilience and create a better environment for learning and thriving, or contribute to severe distress if they're not addressed systematically. We know that when severe psychological distress interacts with major risk factors such as depression, severe anxiety, and other mental health conditions, vulnerable students, and adults for that matter, may view suicide as a viable way out of their psychological pain. And this is why many of our evidence-based programs around the country focus on developing not only peer support, but also important connections between students and adults on campus and in the community. I hope this helps clarify some of the issues that have been in discussion, and that we're continuing to support the idea of its nature and nurture, and want to applaud your efforts to look at the whole picture. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Joshi.
Thank you, Dr. Joshi.
Corey Summers, to be followed by Mark Vincenti, to be followed by Kara Stoneburner.
Corey Summers, thank you. 2 months ago, I stood before you, along with my wife and 7-year-old son, and humbly asked that you consider some of the common sense proposals of Save the 2008. Unfortunately, you have decided to take no action. And in the interim, another Gunn High School student is no longer with us. I decided not to bring my son tonight because I really didn't want him to hear what I have to say. I really didn't want him to see me having to be so brutally honest about such a difficult topic. And frankly, I'm tired of him being exposed to this mess. I'm tired of having to explain to him why kids are doing this and why we have a school board that won't even take up for consideration the common sense proposals put in front of it by the community that elected it. Instead of action, what do we get? We get the school superintendent going on NPR and blaming these suicides on mental illness, while completely ruling out academic stress as a possible cause. I want to make sure you, the board, and the audience understand how cynical and frankly insulting this really is. To blame mental illness is basically to make the claim that gun students are suffering from some sort of random mental illness epidemic that has nothing to do with the environment at the school. The reality is that there is something about the environment at Gunn that is pushing these kids to end their lives. It's a statistical fact that the suicide rate at Gunn is far higher than neighboring schools. So please, let's stop pushing the fiction that there are more mentally ill kids at Gunn. We know it's the environment. It's a fact, not a theory. My mom, an epidemiologist who spent time at Stanford and has conducted many academic studies, was very interested in Save the 2008 and asked why the group formed in the first place. I told her about the cluster of suicides at Gunn and how the board has done nothing. And she said, you know, it all starts with the parents. Until the parents at Gunn start to make noise, all the kids and teachers in the world can scream to the wind, but nothing will happen. Obviously, she said, the majority of parents at Gunn must like the pressure cooker environment. It must suit their parenting style and their view of the world and what is important. It may also be the case, she continued, that it's a highly mobilized and vocal minority of parents that has the most influence on the board and the ear of the superintendent. So my message to the parents in the audience tonight, at least to those of you who don't believe that academic success should trump your kids' sanity, is that until you stand up here and make your voices heard and tell the board that you don't want your child's school to artificially create a high-stress, high-anxiety environment for the benefit of a minority of parents with a warped worldview, then nothing will change at Gunn, and we will lose more kids.
Thank you,
Thank you very
Mr.
much.
Summers. Mark Vincenti, to be followed by Kara Stoneburner, to be followed by Srinivasan.
My name is Mark Vincenti, and like all the other teachers at Gunn in 2009 and 2010, I was in a classroom for hundreds of hours with children whose friends and schoolmates were ending their own lives, and that work is my qualification to speak. Most urgently, could we please get rid of the idea that our kids' suicides have been 100% completely unrelated to school? How can anyone possibly know that? Did you or I talk to these kids before they died, sit with them for an hour, shadow them through a school day? You haven't run a study, and you never even finished the last one. Were these kids' minds somehow so insular that their surroundings affected them not at all? That's never been true of a single human being ever, and to single out the so-called mentally ill as being somehow oblivious in a way no one else is to drive the stigma home. If I speak sharply, forgive me. Perhaps Martha Cabot and I have earned some right since for 2 months we've worked in the most constructive way imaginable, offering well-considered measures. So I'd like to talk about the district's latest measure, last week's homework directive. It is a suddenly administered burden on Gunn's teachers when, Well, they may not be rising to their times as heroically as the teachers at Sandy Hook did, but it's close. Why issue this order 10 days after another loss, especially if the official claim is that suicide has nothing to do with schoolwork? Why not wait till fall? This edict asks for huge adjustments when we should be forbearing toward everyone who's been heartsick, and I include everyone at Palo. And the homework policy departs precipitously from past practices. The number of gun, English, psych, history, math, foreign language, and performing arts teachers on the district's homework committee was 0. Outsiders might think it's easy for teachers to turn on a dime and just assign less. But teachers' practices and habits with homework are usually the outcome of years and years of revising one's approaches to the same material to find the best way of shaping it to the teaching time allotted and to create a synergy between in-class work and work at home, all with an eye toward leading students to a certain level of insight. And how will you effect the homework rules? With a sophomore, say, whose allotment of weekly homework is 8 hours, do his 5 or 6 teachers divide that by their number, then by the number of school days that week, then average that with all their other kids, including the 7 hours per week freshmen? The devil and dozens of new cares will be in the details. Our suicide prevention policies have failed. I don't know why it's so hard for us to say this to each other or to say that kids' surroundings matter. A young tree may have a disease eating it on the inside, but surely that tree's survival also depends on the soil it's rooted in, the wind and weather, and especially on what a climate should have in abundance, especially at school, fresh air and sunshine and calm. Our teenagers aren't indoor potted plants. They live in the world. And if within this world we grown-ups fashion, we decide to offer them more of the same in the hope of getting different results, then it's not the kids who are mentally unsound, it's us.
Thank you. Kara Stoneburner, to be followed by Srinivasam Subramanian and Donna Norton.
So my name is Kara Stoneburner. I'm a Palo Alto Unified teacher and parent. And I've always suspected certain things, but finally got confirmation of it. It turns out that Titans are compassionate, always there for you, resilient, thoughtful, caring, sassy, open-minded, enlightened, empathetic, and cheese. It turns out that these words and phrases were used to complete the sentence, "A Titan is," by gun students, gun administrators, and some district administrators and board members. Thank you. You can see photos of these folks and their words and phrases on atitanis.tumblr.com. So as soon as I'm stop talking, you can look it up. So if you do, you will learn that Titans are smart and photogenic and witty and very good spellers. What you won't see on this website are any dissenting messages, which makes sense. This is a positive campaign, and we need that right now. However, we know that there's plenty of students who would have completed the sentence "A Titan is" with sleep-deprived, stressed out, getting a D, depressed, abandoned, shunned, silenced, and sad. At the last board meeting, we heard from students who were Titans who were leaders, well-spoken, charming, and persuasive. And they explained to us that gun is not broken, it's wonderful, and many suggested solutions. One of which was balancing out the homework load. And sorry, Mark, but I think that the move on homework policy, which has been in place for a couple years and wanting to put it in place more firmly, is brilliant, and I want to thank Max and Charles and all the other people who worked really hard on this. So at that same board meeting, we also heard from Titans that were brave, honorable, courageous, and persistent. And this is because they were willing to come up to this mic and publicly admit that for them, guns' expectations and the rigorous academic climate isn't working for them. They're unhappy, discouraged, they don't necessarily enjoy going to school anymore. So if Titans are open-minded, enlightened, and empathetic like we know them to be, they need to hear and honor the dissenting messages as well. So students, there were a lot of you here last week, not so many this week. I'm sure they're all watching from home. But I want you to go up to the people who've proposed solutions and congratulate them, even if you don't appreciate their solutions, because they have gone out on a limb for you and your friends. So I think our job as adults to hear and take action on these suggestions and requests from the array of gun students, and that sounds like it's rolling forward at quite a rapid pace. But you need to listen to those who have no voice, because we've heard a lot from the leaders, the courageous kids who come forward, but we also need to hear from the kids who feel like they have no voice. And I have 12 seconds left, so I'm going to say if we could abolish Monday night homework deadlines, my weekends would be much happier. And I think our children's weekends would too.
Yes, it would.
Thank you.
Dr. McGee, could I actually just ask, several speakers, I think, have understood Dr. McGee's comments on stress and
Right.
mental, in ways that I think are different than I understand. I've actually appreciated the fact that you've seen these connections between stress and well-being and the dangers that our students face. And I'd like you to underline that.
Yeah, absolutely, and especially after we spend so much time with the parents of the students. So, yeah, as I think I said at the outset, as I said at my opening remarks at the last meeting, and as the conversation has continued, it has been that we are all in this together. That it is not just a school problem. It is not just a parent problem. It is not just a mental health problem. I think Dr. Joshi echoed what I have seen, what I have heard. I have a meeting actually tomorrow with another parent who tragically lost her son. And we are getting to the depths of the problem and proposing solutions that truly are different and are making a difference. And I think we're hearing this from our students, and we certainly last night had all different students with different points of view. So thanks. I won't go on for that, but I do think there are some perhaps misconceptions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I appreciate that work, and I also want to underline what the previous speaker said, which is that I think a lot of students are showing a lot of courage in coming forward with solutions, and I really want to honor and support that work, and also encourage those who disagree to also support that that effort, because I think it's admirable.
And we really had a sense of that last night, didn't we?
Yes,
Yeah,
it was,
that
it was,
session.
the kids have great ideas, and the administration's listening. And I think we will see some things rolling out that are very creative.
And frankly, everybody doesn't agree. So
That's right.
what we're doing is we're working through a process, and it's great to have people here, and it was great to have people here last week. And it's just interesting. Everybody's solutions aren't the same, so
Right.
or believe. So we try to work it through. Even tonight was interesting. Homework versus non-homework. I mean, you have to understand we're getting a lot of input from a lot of
Yes, we
people.
are. And we're
So this is
Right
great,
on.
folks, but we haven't agendized it, so let's move on. But I really appreciate your comments on that, Dr. McGee. Srinivas Subramanian, to be followed by Donna Norton, to be followed by Terry Baldwin, to be followed by Meb Steiner.
Okay, I think on the note of being open for disagreement, I think what I'm going to say might be slightly different. First, let me acknowledge homework is stressful.
Mhm.
And I looked at your email and made me look through the homework policy, and I started analyzing it, and first thing is I didn't think it was a policy that was enforceable, and it is more of an advisory. Then I started wondering, why are we advising? Do we believe we have qualified teachers? And answer is true. Do we believe teachers care about our students? If that's true, then why do we need to tell them about this stuff? So I started looking through that, in that angle, and what are we trying to achieve? And what I think is missing in all this is that you're addressing a symptom, that is homework is stressful, but not understanding the root cause.
Mhm.
I have seen, and you can talk to many students, you need to understand what is happening in the classroom to understand why homework is stressful. If you give a high school student, or let me just make the statement, this approach is more towards homeworks that are drill oriented. If I give them 100 problems of the same kind, then you want to put a cap on it. But that's not how the homeworks are. What I see my kids go through is that he or she, they're actually learning while doing the homework. And that's what takes time. They don't get enough skill development in that session in the classroom that for homework they end up watching Khan Academy or other stuff and doing a little bit of research. So I think that's good. I'm not complaining about it. But I can't ask him to now have a stopwatch and do a homework, and then if the time runs out, go tell the teacher. So you need to understand the ratio of classwork to homework and try to adjust that. That would be my suggestion of how to approach this. So the other one is make the homework purposeful. And I see a lot of the stuff here about time management, but Schoology's calendar is blank. Doesn't have the homework or the test. I'm going to start sending you my kids' Schoology calendar. That doesn't mean I'm pointing at specific individuals. I want you to go look at the calendar. It doesn't have the tests or the homeworks. Even in this, on page 4, you don't commit to using Schoology. You say some online communication tools. So I think there are some small steps that you can take, very specific, that is enforceable. And if you go that route, then you won't be caught up in these emotions and symptoms, but you'll actually get to the root cause. I have more, but I'll write it to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Very nice.
Donna Norton, to be followed by Terry Baldwin, to be followed by Meb Steiner.
My name's Donna Norton, and I'm a mother of a junior at Gunn. These last few months have been very traumatic for my son and for our whole family. We are therefore very happy that you all have taken action to reduce stress at Gunn. Change is hard, and we really appreciate your leadership. We're particularly excited about plans to pilot the block schedule at Gunn, and we appreciate Dr. Herman's leadership in regard to this very important issue. A block schedule means fewer classes, fewer transitions, and less academic stress. A block schedule would also more easily accommodate an addition of socio-emotional learning curriculum and would support more active, in-depth learning. One issue, though, of concern in my understanding of the block schedule is that it wouldn't actually take effect until the academic year of 2016-2017. And that's when the current juniors and seniors have already graduated. And these are the kids who are really suffering the most right now. And I would urge you to do anything you can to start to phase in these changes earlier so they can also benefit. We're also really excited about new policies designed to limit homework. As I'm sure you all know, though, the trick is in the implementation. And really few students and parents actually knew that a homework policy already existed. And it's really hard, I'm sure, for teachers to know exactly how much time students are spending on their assignments. And from our perspective as parents, it's actually really difficult as students and even as parents to tell a teacher that you think they're giving too much homework and you're afraid that they're going to think less of your student because your student is the one complaining. So I think what's really needed for implementation is for both students and parents to be able to report anonymously in some way how much homework that the student is actually doing for any class, and that this information be public so everyone can see it, and you can see it when you're signing up for new classes, and everyone is in this continuous feedback loop. And I think that's the way that it actually is going to get implemented. Reducing homework and time studying for tests is critical for our kids to have time to spend with friends and family, which I know we're all longing for in this community. To volunteer in their communities, to have jobs, to have chores at home, which would really help the moms like me. And just to be even able to participate in the beauty and nature of the Bay Area. So those are all things that make kids resilient. So thank you again for what you're doing, and we're with you to make this a better place.
Thank you.
Well, thanks. Very nice. Just a quick comment on block scheduling. I asked the board president if I could comment on this because this came up, they call it the Bell schedule, the WASP report. And our request from my position from the board was to move, that was literally beginning at 12:02 to start those conversations. Because we would, it's our sense, we'd rather see it next year than 2 years out.
12:02 PM
Yeah,
today.
and I
Not-
actually-
Not year 12:02.
Yeah. And actually, it was over with the math department. Probably 4 or 5 of us just sitting around the lunch table, just talking about the pros and cons today. So people are already talking about it. So, but I appreciate your comments. I just wanted that it's not a done deal that it's 2 years out. We're hoping a lot sooner. So we'll keep moving.
Terry Baldwin, to be followed by Meb Steiner. And Terry, I really do want to hear what you say, and I'm going to have to watch it on film.
It's quick.
Okay? It's not any reflection on you.
No problem.
Go.
Thank you. Terry Baldwin, president of the Palo Alto Educators Association. And I just wanted to let you know that PAEA is dedicated to working with our district to support our students, both academically as well as socially and emotionally, actually. As teachers, we have also been deeply impacted by the recent deaths of our students. These are the kids that some of our colleagues have had the honor of teaching. We are doing what we can to support these colleagues in their school communities, as well as all of our students. A lot of focus has been on the high school teachers, which of course they've just recently had these students, but we also have to remember that the middle school and elementary teachers are also going through this as well. So we're just here and we want to work with the district on helping our students. So thank
So
you.
nice you're
Thank
here.
you,
Thank
Terry.
you.
Meb Steiner.
Thank you. I was present at the last school board meeting where so many members of our community got up and spoke and expressed their concern and their care for our students. And so many of our students got up and spoke. And I echo the sentiment that was expressed earlier of the bravery and the courage that it takes. A lot was said about, getting rid of the stigma of mental illness. And I strongly believe that we have to pursue that line also. What I was struck by was how much I actually was impacted the following day. Like that evening, you sort of sit and you hear and you just keep hearing and listening. And then it actually hits you the next day of everything that was said. It's an emotional issue. It's a very difficult issue to talk about. There is no one-size-fits-all solution. And I think Dr. Joshi really expressed it very eloquently and with his depth of experience can certainly speak to the specifics of that much more than I can. But what I was struck by from the many voices that came is that regardless of what the solution is that someone offers, whether we agree with it or don't agree with it, when one looks at why a solution was offered or what the reasoning behind it was, certain themes kind of came out to me. A desire for connectedness, a desire for smaller communities that could be created for supporting one another. And I say that not only of our students, but of each other. And I want tonight to remind us of our common purpose. Because regardless of the specificity of the suggestion, our common purpose is to create an environment and create a place where all of our students are thriving and to give them the tools. And I think as we have our conversations, a lot of times it's not about specifically doing any one thing, but sometimes creating an environment around it to have the conversation of how we can help our children make their decisions. I'm going to run over, but very briefly, one of the things that has kind of really struck a chord with people is the cell phone issue. It's one of the common sense suggestions from Save the 2008, and a lot of people have reacted very strongly to it. Because cell phones are a part of our children's lives. Stress is a part of our children's lives. It will continue to be a part of their lives. But if one looks at the reasoning that was put behind why they wanted to make a change on the cell phone use. It's to keep people focused and in the moment and to give people a chance to connect. And when one looks at that, then the conversation becomes less about, yes, we should ban it, no, we shouldn't ban it, and more about how can we have a responsible use of this technological tool.
Thank you
So I remind us of our common purpose. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. All right. Before we move on, Dr. McGee has one more announcement.
Thank you. This piece of paper was put out for me for the superintendent's report at the last moment. I'm sorry I got lost in the shuffle. Christina Schmidt from the CAC had asked me to announce the resource fair of summer camps, after-school activities, and educational resources. The session is sponsored by a whole host of providers. It's Wednesday, February 18th, a week from tomorrow night, 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. at JLS. I know Ms. Ofek is here tonight, and it's a great opportunity to learn about all the activities we have this summer, and I hope people can attend. Thank you.
Madam President, I actually have one announcement to follow along on that, which I think that Mary Vincent from CAC announced at the last board meeting, but I just wanted to recall that, which is March 1st from 5 to 7 at First Congregational Church in Palo Alto is a youth forum, Listen to Youth, that's sponsored by a variety of community organizations, and I think will be a nice opportunity to listen to students talk about their lives at school and in the community.
Wonderful.
I'll be
Thank you
there.
for sharing.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to our first item, which is an information item. The Professional Development Management, My Learning Plan. Dr. McGee.
Great. Oh, thank you. I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Young. And this is really something new, and it is aligned with our strategic goal area C, as well as our third board goal, which is assuring that the professional development is tied to the specific district and school improvement goals. And there's a significant body of research that talks about the importance of that. And in fact, that is the only type of professional development that makes a difference in teaching and learning when it is tied to these set of common goals. So with that, I'll turn this over to Dr. Young and Coordinator Bickle.
Thank you, Dr. McGee. Joined by my partner, Dr. Bickle, this evening. Good evening, board. We're excited to come tonight to talk to you about My Learning Plan, which is a software program that we selected last year to help us implement our professional development efforts. And so this evening, we'll take you through a presentation with these outcomes in mind. We'd like you to learn about My Learning Plan's features, basically what it functions and what it does for us. On our first steps towards implementation, this is year one into our work with this, and we'd like to give you an update of where we are currently. We'll talk a little bit about its features, some of which we are using and several of which we are not yet, but we will as we continue to go forward. And then we'll give you a sense of early outcomes and really the focus on all of our professional development is planned impact on teaching and learning. When we talked about professional development in the last couple of years, being very focused and intentional with our efforts, we realized that if we're going to do it right, you have to have a shared commitment with all of the stakeholders that are involved in the process. And we believe that we have a shared commitment absolutely with the board when we entered into this effort, and absolutely with the staff to make sure that we do professional development right. Also, when we got into this a couple of years ago, we realized if we're going to go down this road, and we know we need to get better, we had some strategic plan survey data that showed us our results were, they were not where we wanted them to be. So we wanted to get better. We had some data around that. We wanted to develop a vision and what I like to call pillars of excellence to guide our work. And I'll talk to you about that in just a minute. Another nice feature to our professional development efforts, and Dr. Bowers was able to successfully work with the association, which was to build some contract language into the bargaining agreement around the expectation that staff would get 18 hours of professional development over a 2-year period, and it totals $1,200. As Dr. McGee noted, this is C, Staff Development and Recruitment, in the strategic plan.
And I believe there's 3 initiatives in that category. That's one of them that you see there with the related actions. Obviously, I won't read all of them, but just a reference point that this is guiding our work. And I wanted to point this out to you just quickly. I think our team is proud of this language up here to help guide our efforts around professional development. We looked at a lot of the research around what professional development looks like when you're doing it right. We have some good partnerships with a national group called Learning Forward, and we've looked at a lot of other research around what does successful PD look like in school districts. So just to highlight a few elements of that, the vision and the pillars of excellence focus on creating a high-quality learning environment for all students, and that the expectation is certificated and classified staff are continually engaged in an ongoing learning process. On those bullets of pillars of excellence, we focused on the need for it to be centered on student learning goals, outcome-based, and that we look at data to determine our effectiveness around it. Our professional development should help strengthen content knowledge and instructional strategies. It's designed to help us meet the needs of all students. I know in this, in the parcel text, one of the features there is we talk about differentiation of instruction, which is a big word, and it covers a lot of territory, and part of our professional development efforts help us to be more mindful in our practices around meeting the needs of all kids. It also talks about the fact that it has to be collaborative, it's a collective responsibility, it's ongoing, and it's embedded in our daily work. A big piece that we talked about is continually being mindful of the professional development that's ongoing, it's embedded, and it isn't just something that happens on a day or a one attended conference and it's kind of a one-off and then it stops. So we continue to strive after being embedded ongoing and part of our daily practices. Other elements that we hope will make it a successful effort are we're regularly evaluating it to ensure high quality experience, and that it's research-based, evidence-based, and then also the area of alignment with site and district goals. So those, a lot of concepts, but we keep looking at that when we entertain the kinds of professional development opportunities that we put on here in the district, and when we reflect on the ones that staff would like to attend. So the vision and the pillars of excellence which are guiding our work. Now Dr. Bickle will take us in the next part of the presentation talking about what is a PDMS, and then she'll take us inside the software to have you get a sense of what it looks and feels like for us in its operation. Kelly.
Thank you. So a professional development management system, or PDMS, is a genre of software out there, and there's a whole bunch of them that allows for electronic tracking and managing of professional development. So we started with looking at the needs of our system with Ed Services, with IT, with HR, and figuring out what was it that we really needed in terms of the features of this software. What are the goals that we were trying to meet? So we went through a review process last year. We looked at a wide range of options and landed with one called My Learning Plan. So we've spent the summer adapting and figuring out all of the testing that needed to happen and tweaking all the forms and getting it just as we wanted. And so now we're about 6 months into having this software up and running with teachers. So what you see up there on the picture is a picture of my desk from September, because we used to have all of our record keeping in paper until last August. And so that was true for teachers earning units for salary advancement, that it would go to HR in paper form, and it was true for the stipend as well. So teachers would print out this form, take it around to the workshops that they were taking, have the instructor sign, have the principal sign, and then send it to me, and I would enter it on an Excel spreadsheet. So I can tell you right now it has saved a ton of time already because I don't have those piles of paper on my desk anymore. It all goes through the system. So in terms of saving time and being efficient and having fewer mistakes, I think that so far has been the #1 outcome that we've seen. The second value that we've seen, value added, is that we have, in terms of the user, which is at this point primarily teachers, they have one system. So they're not having to figure out which form they need for which kind of credit. They log on through one system, and it's all electronic. So teachers can see where their requests are in the approval process, and I'll show you that in a few minutes on the software. And then the third thing is that we have a very powerful and flexible data and reporting tool. So I can put in a request to my learning plan to say I want a report that captures these pieces of information, and within a few days they've built it for me and I can access it. So that's something that we really haven't had before, is that ability to look at evaluation data from professional development in one single place. We would have people, give their responses, how did it go, what did you learn, but those would live in special education or ed services. They weren't in one place. So already those are the three big outcomes that we've seen. So one challenge was figuring out how do we roll this out to all of our administrators and our 945 teachers and get everybody up and running with the turnaround that we needed to drive everything that people did this summer through my learning plan. So my theory of change around this was that if you can shop online, you can use my learning plan. It's fairly straightforward. So we went with training light on this. We started with, at the leadership retreat, training our administrators on how the system works and how the approval process works. And then for teachers, the image up there on the right is a website that I created, and all those links go to tutorials how to use the various features. And then there's paper instructions too that went out as attachment. And hundreds of people were able to log on, no problem. I also went to many school sites, either by request of the principal, request of a department, and I still, I was at Jordan yesterday with their new teachers, so I still am going out and just helping people get on. So we've had some feedback. This is highly scientific feedback. I've had people say, I love my learning plan. I said, can you put that in an email and tell me why? So it's definitely, one-sided, I can say that. But these resonate with some of the themes that I've heard, that it's easy and efficient. I can quickly identify district workshops that are relevant to me. There's some nice search features. There's a calendar feature. I can see whether my request is approved. It's convenient and it's transparent. So another middle school teacher, it's easy to track progress, to find workshops, to continue professional development. And I love this one. I love that I don't have to try to track down administrators or other teachers to get signatures. It's convenient, effective, and helpful. And from one of our elementary principals, she's finding it helpful to look across her staff at professional development about people who've been actively involved in professional development, and then being able to link up teachers who might be interested in learning about the topic when somebody else has been to professional development. So this principal has really figured out how to use the system as a way to spread that knowledge.
Dr. Bickle,
Yes.
is that across schools or within a school?
Principals right now can see their own school. I can see everything, so we could look at data across schools if we wanted to. I don't think we're quite to that point yet, but we certainly
I was just
can.
thinking if someone at another school had taken that workshop and a teacher wanted to talk to them about it.
Yeah, that would be good. They could always email me to say, did somebody else go? And yeah. So, so this is from a principal who said, I like it, but I could use more practice, which is, I would say yes, because there's a lot of features that we just haven't rolled out yet and had a chance to explore. It's a good way to track professional development the teachers are interested in, and I like the web-based format. It's much easier than the pre-planning sheets we had. So just some statistics for you. We have about 945 teachers, and of those, 625 of them have logged in and gotten their accounts up and running. We've been able to pay, that number actually has gone up because I just sent my payroll report to payroll today. So we're probably up closer to 300 stipends that we've been able to pay through the system so far. HR has logged 30 units towards salary advancement using this already this year, and we've created, that number's probably higher too, 65 courses through the district catalog. So we're getting some good use out of this system. So in terms of thinking about, so My Learning Plan is a tool. It's a platform. It's very flexible. We can build in all of the forms, all of the reporting that we want. So it's really up to us to figure out how to leverage the power of this tool to be able to drive the kind of feedback that we want, the kind of data that we want. So we know we want to understand how is our professional learning impacting teacher knowledge. That's really important, right? Because if we want to see change in practice, we have to make sure teachers, anybody knows how to go about implementing whatever it is we're asking them to implement. We also want to understand the classroom application and impact, which is a little bit harder to make that link between professional development and how it's impacted student learning, because there's so many factors there. But we do have with My Learning Plan some options to track who has taken a certain workshop or certain strands of workshops, survey them down the road, capture some of the work and the conversations that we're having, and I'll show you those features in a minute. So another nice feature is that teachers can integrate their own professional goals. There's a way to customize that. So I'll show you in the tour that teachers are asked to link their choices for workshops to strategic plan goals, but they can also upload their own professional goals. And you can see mine up there: provide awesome workshops to implement my learning plan. You can give me some feedback on how that's going later. So this connects with what Dr. Young was saying earlier, that we know that the best professional development doesn't happen by teachers sitting in a room for 2 hours or for a day. Where the learning really happens is with taking that knowledge, trying out a new approach in the classroom, seeing the impact on the students, adjusting, and having it be that ongoing learning. So one of our challenges is to figure out how to leverage this tool to support that. So this is an example of one of the features, a team room. So, and we have a number of platforms, Google Docs, Schoology, where this kind of interaction could happen as well. The nice thing about this one is it's built into My Learning Plan. So the top part is a threaded discussion, and this is just an example that I created for you. So you could say after an after-school workshop, so now that you've attended the first session, what is your plan to impact student outcomes? And then how did it go the next week? So you can engage participants over time in how is it going without people necessarily having to come back and sit in a room again, that this can happen in a more flexible way. The other feature down at the bottom is shared files. So you can upload lesson plans or articles or links to videos and share that knowledge right within My Learning Plan. So I'm just going to highlight for you a couple of the features of the software here. Might take me just a second to get it up and running.
Want us to talk? Hey, don't be fun. No offense. Yeah, I know. Just thinking there's questions that we have here. Yeah, I know. No.
So the first thing a user sees when they log in is their dashboard. And this is a record of where activities are in the process. So I have one here that's pending prior approval, and I have a bunch here that I am in the middle of taking. You can see that mine is full of all the testing that I did this summer. And if I wanted to see, so I just registered for this class today, and if I wanted to see where it was in the process, I could click on Manage, and I could see, oh, Dr. Young, you haven't pre-approved me yet. And I could say, oh, could you please pre-approve me for that class, or can we talk about it? So that's part of that transparency piece where people can see where they are in that approval process. Let's see. This is where people would put in their personal goals that I showed you on the slideshow, and I'll show you where they show up on the registration in a second. This is the district catalog. And this is where all the professional development offerings are available for people to see. I'm having some technical difficulty here. So if I wanted to register for one of these classes, I would just click on the title. And there's a description. Why is this? I'm having trouble with. Okay. Request approval. And then the teacher view looks a little bit different. Since I have all power on the system, I can edit here, but users wouldn't be able to edit. There's a place here to explain how does this connect to your professional goals, so that we're connecting that in right away. How is this going to help you work towards those goals that you've set at the beginning of the year? Down at the bottom here are all of our strategic plan goals. And so teachers can click which ones. This one is already set because it's a district workshop. But on some of the other forms, if somebody's going to a workshop or a conference or taking a class, they would make that link to the strategic plan goals. And then you see that my personal goal also shows up here. So I can connect what I'm doing to my personal goals as well as to district goals. Sites do have, we do have the capability for sites to add their site goals. That's probably down the road. This option here helps us to decide where the form is going to be routed. So if it's going for professional learning stipend, it would go to the principal for approval and then come to me. Units for salary advancement to the principal and then to HR. So things get routed to the correct person. And then just the last feature I wanted to show you here. These forms down here are for out-of-district requests. So if I wanted to take a class, it's just a blank form, and people enter, the information, and same thing, connect it to goals, and off it goes for approval. So this has been a major focus of my work, and it's been really great to see it take off and to see the power of it and to be at a place now where we have people using it. I've figured out some of the, like level 1 glitches and it's working. I can answer questions more easily. And I'm excited to be at the point where we're really thinking about how do we leverage some of the other features here, the team room, the reporting, to really get some better data to drive the kind of teaching and learning that we really want to see. Thank you.
Terrific. Well, we feel your excitement. For sure. Oops. So, colleagues, this is an information item, and so if you have any thoughts or questions, they're here to answer them. We're starting with Mr. Donner.
Thanks for that presentation. It was really interesting. I just have a few questions, which aren't so much about the software, but I have to confess to being quite ignorant about the role of professional development in how we think about we're achieving our mission and resources we're developing and so forth. So it's useful for me anyways to get some sense about that. First of all, can you give me a rough sense about how much money we spend on professional development in the district on an annual basis?
That is probably next year I could give you a much better answer. We have, so the board set aside 2 years ago about $5 million for professional development. So we have that. We also have funds from the state to support Common Core implementation. So we have really focused that money on professional development, knowing that Common Core is new for all teachers. We want to give them the support that they need. So we've probably spent, more this year and last year. I don't know that I have, because that budget covers Common Core, technology, and materials, I don't know that I can answer that right now. I'd have to go back and look at that budget.
And I think that Dr. Bickle said this earlier, but I think definitely by the end of the year, we can give you an accounting of, how much money we allocated towards professional development this year, because we're tracking that.
Yeah, I was just kind of looking for a sort of order of magnitude. So I'm curious about how we think about professional development in the overall context of some of the changes that we're looking to achieve. So, for example, let me take the homework policy change that Dr. McGee talked about. I would think that part of that change would be providing professional development that's oriented towards enabling teachers to do things like develop effective homework and so forth. Can you just briefly walk me through how this piece might fit into that overall strategy?
Sure. So as part of the homework policy that came out, Dr. Magee had charged the directors, Catherine and Barbara, with working with me and principals to think about professional development, to come up with a plan for professional development for teachers around homework and supporting that change. So that will be a task that we'll be working on this winter and spring, to figure out what that plan is, what the best resources are, making sure that whatever we offer is based on the best research that we know about something like homework.
Like homework design, for
Homework
example.
design,
You know, we
yeah.
heard a great comment, I think, earlier tonight about just not busy work, and we heard from the students it needs to be meaningful. So they're going to offer a session like on just design, not just assign. Yeah, yeah.
And so would there be a list then of district-approved programs that would address that topic, and we would expect teachers to select from that list? Is that how that would work?
I think that'll be part of designing the plan and working with principals to figure out what's the best approach for their site. It could be, a range of district workshops that teachers could choose from. It could be working with principals to help them design that work into staff meetings and time that they have for professional development. So one thing that I think is really important with professional development is that you start with the outcomes you have in mind, think about the best resources, think about your audience and what the best way is. So it's really a design process.
Okay, thanks very much. I appreciate that.
Thanks.
Ms. Godfrey?
I want to thank you as well. I know that getting software up and running is not the easiest thing in the world.
I had no idea.
Yeah, I'm sure you didn't. So I had a couple of questions with respect to, so one of the things Mr. Dauber just mentioned was kind of a tops-down thing you might do around professional development when you know a lot of folks need help maybe designing homework. Or in the WASC earlier today, we talked about grading smarter versus harders or Common Core. So there are things that kind of come top down. In my professional experience, there's also stuff that sort of bubbles up from the bottom up. And in my own professional experience, the ways that we used to get at that stuff would be, looking at the evaluations of a whole set of employees and seeing if there was a common thread on things that folks needed help with. What might be finance analysts needed presentation skills. And you could see it in their evaluations because 80% of them had that. So I'm curious to know if we do any of that. And then the question that I have that sort of goes with it is, does this system have a way for teachers to say, oh, I was looking for a class that was going to teach me blah, and I don't see it, and then put in a request for, I'd like to learn whatever this is, which would also be sort of another way that things bubble up.
Right.
Where you have enough teachers who've asked for a certain kind of training that you don't have, then you can go get it. So it's, maybe via their evaluations and then also via their sort of their self-awareness of things they want to do. So anything around that would be helpful to me.
Yeah, so I think that would be a great feature to build into my learning plan, because right now it would just be, I can't find anything, so they would send me an email. But I do think it would be great to have that. I'm interested in these topics, which could be through a survey that we would build into my learning plan, or it could be, a place to submit that information. So I think that's a great thing to explore. Right now, the way that the connection between evaluation and professional development works really happens at the school site in the conversations that teachers have with their instructional supervisors at secondary and with principals, and at elementary with principals. My learning plan does have a companion software that is the evaluation tool, and it connects the professional development and evaluation in a more systematic way. At this point, we just went with this part of the software. But maybe down the road that would be something to look at.
Yeah, those modules together would be powerful, right? Because you could bubble that up and see if you have a kind of a common set of stuff that's not being met.
Right. And I completely agree that with professional development, you need a balance of here are district goals, here's some things that we're all going to do. And you also need a way to feed up from the professionals who are in the classroom, who know what the challenges are, they know the research out there, and to support that as well. So finding a way to balance that is another piece of this puzzle.
Ms. Godfrey, I think another piece of that, we had, I think, strategic plan spring survey data around teacher interest and needs with professional development, and I believe you administered a survey recently to solicit interest and needs from staff, and we were looking at those and categorizing them and putting them into themes. So that's I think part of your question was, how do we get input from people regarding what they need related to professional development?
And the WASC outcomes for high school are a natural starting place as well. That's great.
Thank you, Ms. Townsend.
Yeah, great questions from colleagues as well. These are really helpful, the depth of them. So I want to pick up on the last comments to Ms. Godfrey's questions regarding the personal plan or the learning plan as to district goals as opposed to personal challenge goals. So back to Dr. Young's initial comments were about, some will be content learning or content-based, some will be not process, instructional strategies, so content knowledge, instructional strategies is like. So for example, I'm curious how this works. If a teacher wants to get better content mastery, I don't know, first, second grade on mathematics, or a whole school does, how does that bubble up? Or is a teacher able to self-choose those kind of personal goals, and I hope so, as opposed to, and I saw you had listed our strategic years goals. And those are important, those are okay, but we've always said that the teacher's first responsibility is to meet the needs of all of their students, and particularly in content knowledge and other things. So are those the only guides? And I know you were talking about that. I don't fully understand. Do they also say, content knowledge, this goes to my better content knowledge of English language arts or math?
So we talked a lot about what goals to put in there as a starting point, and ended up with the strategic plan goals because they were shared across the whole system. We can integrate any goals that we want to in there. The tricky thing is, in a K-12 system, especially, you start to think about secondary and the range of things that people teach. You have to find goals that are broad enough that meet across the range. So I think things like stronger content knowledge, instructional strategies would be great
as a
things
category.
to embed in as a category. Yeah.
So there would be a way to trigger that it's okay to do classes on content knowledge.
Sure, yeah. And then based on a question from a board member, I pulled out the professional growth plan that we have right now that runs through Dr. Bauer's office. And it says that it should include 1 to 5 professional growth goals that are consistent with school, district, and department goals. So I think those personal goals would in some way be related to those larger strategic plan goals, whether that's, Common Core, which is so broad, or social emotional well-being, so that those personal goals are linked to those, but more specific to the kind of work that teacher is doing professionally.
Well, that's interesting because obviously as we design our yearly goals, there's always been this tension between, okay, we have these goals, but we've got all the rest of this work, and we don't want to push people away from learning about that. So I'm interested in how the board interacts in the future in order, because it is easy. Sure, you've got a list, you put the list up there and that, but it doesn't mean to the exclusion of other things.
Sure.
So I'm thinking that's certainly a conversation for us in the future. And I know there is a significant amount for professional development right now. How much is the program itself?
The cost is, I believe, $16 per person for certificated, and $12 for classified, up to, I think, 200 or 300, and then they don't charge us for the rest.
So it's 16 times 900,
Yeah.
some whatever. Okay. Oh, so that's how they charge us. It's per
That's up
person?
through 200.
Yeah.
Is it,
Up
did
to
you say
200.
$16 up through 200?
No, $16 for every certificated
Every
employee.
but
Yeah, and then
classified
classified is 12. I think it's $12 to 400, and then there's no charge for anybody above
400,
that.
okay.
Yeah, which is fantastic because it means we can include every member, whether they work, or every employee, whether they work just
That's
a few
great.
hours or full time.
Nice.
Great. Well, that's enough. This is great. So you'll be able to pull out all kinds of reports at the end of the year on, and it would be, I'd be interested to know, like, how many teachers are getting content knowledge-based training? I'd like to know that. And whether you're still building the apparatus to be able to pull out different information.
And I think that gets back to your question about the goals and making sure that we have the right goals so that we would be able to look at the data in that way. Because that question that you just asked, I'm thinking, I don't know that I could give you that information right now, but we could redesign for next year in ways that could capture what we really wanted to know.
No, that's what's brilliant about your presentation right now. It gives us the insight to feedback loop, and it's great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Ms. Townsend, I just wanted to point out too, I think there's a lot of words in that, the pillars of excellence and
Lots
mission
of
there.
words.
There's a lot of words up there. But the second bullet, staff shares board in your
knowledge.
interest
Yes.
around, obviously, strengthening content knowledge.
There
Just wanted
it
to
is.
wanted to highlight that for you.
Yeah, we'll put that in the list. Yeah.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
I sent you some questions in advance, but the biggest one for me is just being able to track the impact on student learning
Right.
and sort of what are the success indicators that we share with our teaching staff, and
Right.
how do we know when those are met? Did you want to speak to that? I know you wrote me some things.
Yeah,
about-
so that is really the $20 billion question in professional development, is how do we measure the impact on students? So we are working on trying to integrate a common feedback survey across all professional development. So we can look at, across everything that we do, what seems to be working. At a conference I went to with Learning Forward, that's the big professional development organization, I spent a whole day talking about evaluating PD in a session. And one of the big takeaways for me was to think about, in evaluating professional development and impact on students, to really choose what it is that you want to focus on. You can't evaluate every hour and a half iPad session that happens after school.
No.
That's not what we're really interested in.
Right.
So to really think about and plan for, in the design, how are you going to design the professional development experience so that you can measure it and you're clear about what it is that you're looking for? How would you know if it really mattered and made a difference? And I think with the Teachers College work, that's probably been the place where we've learned the most about possibilities for that, because we have so many supports and we're able to see the impact in classrooms and with the TOSAs supporting it. So I think that is going to be, in the future, really thinking about what are those bigger initiatives, those areas of focus, and how are we really going to focus on understanding the impact on students.
Terrific. Thank you very much.
Good. Well, thank you, and we look really forward to the professional dialogue. And I'm so thrilled that this has been so well received by the staff and used, with such fidelity already, and by 2/3 of the teachers. I mean, that's good job. A nice rollout, and thank you for the presentation.
Thank you so much. We didn't have any cards from the community on this item. No.
Oh, my.
Okay, so we're moving on now. We moved our agenda around a bit, so we're going to take a detour into discussion item number 8, which is the 2015 California School Boards Association Delegate Assembly election. Dr. Meany.
Yeah, this is, we do need to, it is our duty to elect 5 of the 9 candidates for the 2-year term. And there's biographical sketches in the packet, so I believe that needs to be done by an action of the board, so I don't
Right.
know how this was done in past years.
Sure.
But we will need, there is a deadline date for this. So.
Right, so colleagues, what I remember we've done in the past was ask the person who was serving on the Santa Clara County School Boards Association, who knew a lot of these people, to maybe put forward any recommendations they had, any other recommendations that came from fellow board members, and that's how we'd put together our slate. So, Ms. Townsend, we're starting with you on this item, and I know you know a lot of the Santa Clara County School Board.
Well, so let me, so if I understand, we're supposed to vote for 5 people. If I, just the basics, let's just go through the basics. And the asterisk people are folks who are in the positions already. And generally, I know these people. My general rule is I go with the incumbent because they learned something. And unless there's a reason not to vote for them, and my recommendation then is to go certainly with Danielle Cohen, who's fantastic, as is Angelique Kosar. George Sanchez is somewhat new as well, but we tried to balance basic aid, high school districts, elementary districts, just to get a coverage of the different kinds of districts, including our district. I mean, I know Reed, I know Nancy, I know, I don't know Contran. Between now and the next meeting, I might know these people better. And usually what happens is at the Santa Clara County School Boards Association, each candidate will give up and give a presentation. I don't know if they've done that or not. I'll have to find out whether at the last meeting they did or if they've got that scheduled, because you get a better flavor for people at that time, and I don't know. So I don't have a whole lot additional stuff to say other than that.
Unless someone else would like to put forth a recommendation for one of these names, I would be happy to defer to colleague Ms. Townsend to do some research for us on our behalf.
Although I'm not offended by anybody doing research on any of this. So no, this is just, I mean, I've been going probably to this for 3 years. I've stopped as both Dane and I went. So through the last 3 years, I've gotten to know many of these people, but some of the names are new. So
perhaps we could also defer to you to have a conversation with Mr. Tom.
Great.
And then come back to us with
let's see what other
some
people say. And
Yeah. Colleagues, did you want to add anything to that suggestion, or do you have any other comments?
I certainly have a newfound belief in the power of incumbency as a reason to vote for somebody. So I'll accept that suggestion, but I would defer to you,
Ms.
Ms. Townsend.
Yeah, having nothing to go on but the information included with their CVs and the forms they filled out. I came up with 5, which sounds a lot like the 5 Ms. Townsend just listed, which was Cohen, Kausar, Myers, Newkirk, and Sanchez. Were the ones that on paper looked best to me, but I'm flying blind, and this one isn't I'm not liaison to this group, so my chances of seeing them up close and personal aren't great.
Okay.
Right. So the 3 are asterisk, and then those that you mentioned are the people I know and can support, but I don't want to give disservice to the others who I don't know yet, and I'll go out of my way.
Yeah, and as I said, I'm going just for
out.
paper,
Yep.
so I don't know.
Well, paper's worth something.
Okay. So thank you, Ms. Townsend, for doing that and bringing that back to us. This will come back as an action item, but we can still have a discussion about it before we vote.
Yep. Sounds good.
Okay, moving along. We are moving on to the board policy updates.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
This was, because of the time last minute, we tabled this to this meeting. But since that time, we did add Board Policy 6142.92 for mathematics instruction that had been through BPRC actually 2 different times. We made some changes. We pulled some of them back. Most of these, however, just had minor changes. Dr. Young is was the lead on most of these, and Ms. Townsend was the chair for all of them, because for all of these. So
Well, imagine
right?
that.
Yeah, for the BPRC.
Well, this was the team.
Right. There was and Ms. Emberley was on the committee. So I don't know. I'll turn this back to you.
Okay. So, colleagues, normally we go through these one at a time, see if there's any questions, and move on from there. Is that all right? I'm seeing nods. I think we can move that forward. So the first one is BP 6000. And there were a few things added to this policy, I thought, by Ms. Townsend that are not included in this version, so I'm not sure, because I can't remember what our discussion was, I'm sorry to say, in December.
Well,
Ms.
let me
Rutziger-
add
yes.
that Ms. Emberling is marvelous. She's a marvelous person on the committee. She really picks up these details, and if some of them didn't get into the version, I certainly want you to add them in now.
Okay. I'm going to turn to Dr. Bowers as well and Dr. Young because they were also involved in this meeting. But I have the December 11th packet here where in the second paragraph, which begins strategies for improving the educational program, see the second paragraph there? So at the end, students who are failing or at risk of failing to meet academic standards shall be provided with alternative programs and/or supplemental assistance designed to raise achievement. And we had added equally, students who need additional challenge shall be provided such.
Yep.
Do you remember that?
I do.
Do you remember
So-
that, Dr. Young or Dr. Bowers? You remember that?
Yeah.
They're nodding their heads, yes, they
I do.
Okay,
So we need to,
so I think we want to add that back
for the
in,
next meeting, make sure that gets in
Yeah.
there. Yes.
if there's any other comment or question about that. That was a sentence that had been added.
Good.
And then, for some reason, Ms. Baldwin is here. You were also on the committee. Do you want to come down? Because you were on the BPRC. Just to the staff table so you can see and be seen. We had talked about deleting number 6, and I couldn't remember the conversation around it, but I could remember that it had to do with collective bargaining agreements with the unions, and you had a comment about that, Ms. Baldwin, in the conversation. Number 6.
So is what we're looking at not what the committee ultimately decided to adopt?
Yeah,
Is that
I
right?
mean,
Is that?
Yeah,
seems
I don't
like
know,
That's what I'm thinking.
Produces some difficulty for us, right?
Yes, it does.
To say the least.
Those were the two big changes, and because we don't have clear notes on that, I'm wondering, I don't know if we need to have.
I'm going to run down and get that packet, because I have that December 11th
Wi-
packet on my desk, too.
So instead, and I think maybe what I'm sensing here is maybe this isn't the best use of our time, and that Ms. Emberling, if you would go back and meet with Dr. McGee and
I think
and make sure that it gets corrected, and then when it comes back to the board, it's in that
Well,
final
I know we
state.
had talked about deleting it, but maybe we decided to just leave it in, and that's why it's still in there. Do you remember, Ms.
I
Baldwin?
think we did. We talked about it, but yeah, I think
We
it was just
decided to leave
the
it in.
collective bargaining unit wouldn't constrain professional development. I think that's why.
I suppose we could take it back to the BPRC and take another quick look
I
at
think
it.
we already have. I mean, for whatever reason, the changes
I
didn't get in the
think that
packet.
maybe if
Yeah.
it's just a minutes thing, I have no problem with them
Just bring it
cleaning it
back.
up and then just bringing it back
Oh, sure,
here.
that's fine,
So
too.
it's
Yeah.
just,
Yeah, I think it's
a
just on this
cleric,
one, but I don't
it's a
think we'll grab my
clerical thing,
packet.
so.
Whatever the
Put it on my
process
desk.
is, that's gonna work, so that
Yeah,
so that we can
it's-
just move through them when it comes to the board,
Yeah.
right?
I think that would be good, just because,
I wouldn't grab them now.
Don't bother.
I would let you handle the
Yeah, right where they
clerical,
are.
the clerical matters,
Yeah.
and when they come
They are
back, I'm
clerical
sure there'll be, Ms. Burling is meticulous with this, and so I want her to just go do it. Okay.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll do
So-
that. BP 6141 is next. The only change you'll see is that we changed a may to a shall. That's reflected there. Anybody have any questions about this policy?
And what page are you looking at?
Oh, 6141, page 2.
Page 2, yes. Well, and I just wanted to point out the process also shall provide opportunities for input from students, parents, guardians, representatives of local businesses and post-secondary institutions and or other community members, which just means that you have to post at least a notice that people get a chance to comment. We haven't historically had, I was sharing this with Dr. McGee, local business has not been part of our process. This, I think, was the CSBA recommendation, and shall is fine. I don't want to constrain the hands of the Development and Evaluation Committee. This broadens it a little bit, but the notice needs to go out to some representatives. So I'm not sure how that's going to quite work, given that we haven't had this in the past. But Dr. McGee, you might have some thoughts about that.
Yeah, no, first of all, I think it's important to note of, we have all kinds of ways through our website, our Max Mail. We can cast a very broad net for this.
Well, I think certainly from my point of view, was the process shall provide input from students, parents, and guardians. For me, that was absolute, given there's teachers and others already. The rest of the local businesses, post-secondary institutions, to me was a may. So, because we haven't done that before. So,
we just made it a
Well,
shall.
providing opportunities.
Yeah.
For them
Opportunities for input.
But the point was that there is no negotiate on students and parents absolutely having absolute So I didn't know if the rest of our colleagues had any thoughts about that. Shall, for me, was everything through parents and guardians, and may for the rest of the crew, but I could go with the shall for everybody. So I don't know if you guys want to reflect on that.
I could go with the shall for everybody because certainly in the other community members space, we get plenty of input from folks who are no longer parents in the district but feel very strongly about our district.
Correct.
And I love having that input. Our local businesses, through their property taxes, support us.
They support us, right?
And our post-secondary institutions, we want to make sure we are, the kids going out our door and in their door are aligned. So the logistics of getting that notice to them is just logistics, but I prefer the shall.
Terrific.
Okay.
Okay,
Good. It's good to get that feedback.
terrific. Moving forward, 6142.92. We had a robust and exciting conversation about this policy, and you should have the current policy in front of you. It was handed out just this evening. We wanted to explain,
Paper copy.
if you had any questions, we wanted to explain our thinking. Actually, some of the changes that I thought we had made are also not reflected in this, that's in our packet. So I do think it's probably going to have to come back to BPRC one more time. But I thought it was good to have it in here so that we could go over some of our thinking and get any of your feedback as well on some of the issues that came up. So shall I just go through just a couple of the
Absolutely.
overarching things?
Absolutely.
You probably noticed when you compared this with the CSBA policy that we combined, and I don't know if you had our current policy, we combined the three areas that are very specific to mathematics instruction from our current policy with the four Common Core State Standards language, the new CSBA. And the reason that we left them both in is Ms. Townsend and community members that came to our meeting wanted us to make sure that we had the content basics down in addition to the more overarching, or what was referred to from time to time as fuzzy language.
Not for me.
Yeah.
Not for me either, yeah.
No, but that wasn't quite as specific as the foundational concepts that we wanted listed there.
Right,
So
the-
that's why we kept, do you remember this conversation?
Yeah, 4 through 7 are really the Common Core mathematical practices that are listed in front of that precede all the Common Core standards at all the grade levels. So that's where 4, 5, 6, and 7 came from. There's 8 of them, and actually there's 2 in each one here. So
The,
It just shows a bit of the history. Math has been a particularly topic of particular interest in this community. And this reflects both a history that got us to this point, but also embracing of the additional points. So it merges the two, which I think people will be able to embrace.
Yes, so that's why you see 7 of them and 3 from the old policy or the current policy, and 4 from the proposed new policy, which is based on the sample and the CCSS standards. The other conversation we had was on page 2 in the 3rd and 4th paragraph. We talked about 4 grades K to 8 and 4 higher mathematics. Do you see those 2 paragraphs? We had some conversation about whether we wanted to make that more fluid and take out K to 8 versus higher mathematics, because some of our students are advanced and ready for higher concepts, even in the K to 8 range. So in middle school, they might be. Also, I think in Common Core, algebra was not introduced till 9th grade, and we have it here in 8th grade. So,
and we wanted to retain that.
Right. So we did actually add the word algebra into the grade K to 8.
We did add it in there.
Yes,
yeah.
and it's not there. And then we also added trig, pre-calc, and calc to the higher mathematics, and those are not reflected there. So I think this also may have not reflected it fully in our conversation.
And I really do see that as a clerical thing. So I would trust the 2 of you to please just put it back in order
Okay.
and chat with
Good.
Ms. Rucksacker.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Did either of you want to comment on whether we should have, such as the sample says, for K to 8 for higher mathematics, or just remove those referrals and just start with content shall address?
So,
I don't
well,
know.
so on this policy in general, I would just like to get the superintendent's perspective on whether the policy as proposed here, presumably with the few changes that didn't make it into this, provide that are consistent with how we are currently teaching mathematics and will serve as a good basis for instruction, because this is in that sense a kind of a technical document.
Right, not just currently, but also in the future, which is why, while we had some discussion whether those mathematical practices are quote unquote fuzzy or not, the fact is, attending to precision is important in mathematics, right? Having the right answer, the practice of modeling with mathematics. I mean, we heard from our students at the last board meeting. In fact, I met with all the students at modeling competition about how they really apply these mathematical formulas and thinking. So I thought it was extremely important to incorporate those because those are really, I think, inform how we do math, thinking numerically or thinking mathematically. A class I observed, I was talking with a gun math chairman today. I said, the students need to learn more than arithmetic in this class. They need to learn how to think mathematically. And we actually had a conversation around these. And as far as adding, we thought it was important, and I thought it was very important to include algebra in the K-8, and then to open the door for some higher mathematics there in that section too. And we may have put something else in there and beyond. I'll check the clerical nature of that. Because I wanted to make sure that it wasn't limiting or too vague. So I thought this was a nice balance of the specificity.
Okay, so you're comfortable with the
I am.
policies? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this policy?
No, and I'm comfortable with the parameters K to 8 and then the higher mathematics, because you're right, we have kids who are making their way there before 8,
Right.
or 9.
Yeah.
Right.
Right, so if something's not clerical, I would have
I'll
you
bring it
guys
back,
bring it
right.
back anyway, and we
Okay.
can,
Yeah.
we're close to, so we
Very
can
close.
discuss it here.
Right, good.
So, but I like your point about it not being limiting, and I think that was the intent of the public conversation at the BPRC, is that it not be limiting, that our kids actually do move ahead, and we want to still allow that, so,
That's right.
okay, good. Alrighty.
Moving on, Good. Science instruction, 6142.93. You can see the changes we made highlighted here. There was a conversation we had about adding the last paragraph from CSBA sample into our proposed policy, and that didn't move over. There was some confusion over whether we decided that was necessary or not.
Are you talking about the change that's reflected here, or I'm not sure I'm following you?
Yeah, there's a last paragraph in the CSBA sample that was not pulled over to this proposed policy, and I think it was potentially, we decided it wasn't necessary. So that could be.
Crisp and clean, and it worked.
Yeah.
for it.
Okay, so the proposed policy then is as it is in the packet. Do you have any questions about that one, or?
Well, I did have a question about the part that we did change here. Is that, like, what compelled us to make that change? Is that something we do now, or is that?
I thought this came from CFC. Maybe address, you mean philosophical and religious theories are based at least in part on faith and are not subject to scientific test and refutation?
I mean, the part that's in gray may be addressed in science classes in the context of history of science and the scientific process. Is that
Correct.
something we do now? Is that why?
Yes, well,
we
and
added
I
it?
think some of our sister, brother school boards across California really battle over this. So this is, in fact, a former superintendent with whom we've worked left a district because the science curriculum covered all kinds of religious options.
Okay.
And so this really isn't our issue in this district, but it has been in other districts, so.
So this is the CSBA recommended change, is that right?
It is, and I apologize, I didn't realize that the CSBA sample for this one wasn't here, so you probably couldn't compare it. Usually, the CSBA samples are included, and it was in our BPRC meeting included, so it is from the sample.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, it's fine with me.
Okay.
Okay, 6142.94. You can see the change that was made. It was just changing governing
That
board
seems
to
fine.
Board of Education.
I can get behind that change.
Okay.
Change it to
Moving
believe
on,
it. All right.
this is an exhibit, 9323.2. And I think the CSB sample was in here as well, so you could see the changed language from the update. Any other questions about that one?
Right.
Okay.
So that was just those kinds of things that need a supermajority vote, and it really does deal with real estate and conveyances of property and deeds. So it's really very limited to property and needs 2/3 vote, just for those who are listening out there in the audience. So intently. Okay.
Yes. Okay,
Very good.
great. So you
Nice
know
job.
which ones are going to go back to BPRC for some cleanup.
I don't think they need to
no,
come
that's
to
right. I think they're
BPRC.
coming-
What
you're
they are
trusting us to
clear
do it.
cut-
and
Yes,
bring 'em back.
so just bring them back next
Right.
meeting, okay?
Okay.
Good.
Well, and you're now chairman, right, of the BPRC?
Yes, she
so
is.
we-
I am.
We can
Yes,
work
I
on
feel
those
all
together.
powerful.
You are powerful. Look at
Okay.
that.
Moving on to our approval of new middle school courses for
Okay.
2015-2016.
Right.
Dr. McGee.
Great, well, thank you. We have, we cited the relevant board policies in here, and we're excited to offer these middle school electives from JLS. And also, following up on a commitment we made at our retreat last August to study the feasibility of expanding Mandarin immersion into 6th, 7th, and 8th grade as we have Spanish immersion in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. We have some staff recommendations of that, and I know Catherine Baker helped really lead the charge in this, and Hillary is part of the World Language Committee, and we have a whole team from JLS here today. So
Wow, look at this.
yeah, we're very excited to hear from them, and thanks for your patience. We've tried to keep things moving along, and eager to hear a little of the background, the rationale, and we will. This is an item for discussion and for voting at the next meeting. So With that, I think,
Ms. Baker?
Catherine or Charles, oh, there you are, okay,
I
good.
was thinking you're looking in the wrong
We're in two different
I'm looking
places.
over there. Okay,
So,
thanks.
thank you. So I want to welcome the JLS team. We've got two parts of this evening that we're recommending. We're starting with the 3 elective courses for JLS that teachers wrote. You have the course outlines in your packet. And I'm going to turn this over to Principal Sharon Ofek, who's going to give you a little bit of an overview and a little background.
Can I just remind the community members that are here, I have a few cards. If you would like to comment on this item, please fill out a card.
Thank you so much. I'm just going to do a quick introduction, and then I'm going to turn things over to the teachers here. We have 3 course proposals this evening for electives to be run for next school year. As JLS grows in its population, we have a need for additional course offerings for electives. So we have a conversation, just so you are aware of the process, we have a conversation very early in the fall around projected growth and what we might need. Obviously, we need to have course offerings that don't require a specialty classroom, like, for example, a cooking program, because we can't build another room with 7 or 8 kitchens in it, etc. So that is the one stipulation that is provided, and then the ISs and department chairs, instructional supervisors and department chairs go back to their departments, and they have conversations. So I have here this evening the folks whose departments went through the entire process of developing a course and a course curriculum and getting the approval process from their steering committees, and they will present to you. So we have the design and technology studio folks here, Elizabeth Fee and Hillary Miller worked on that. We have Creature Creations, Chris Motley worked on that with his VAPA folks. And then we have Jen Caluzzi and Jamie Buttle, who are going to be presenting about the Writing for Multimedia elective. Oh, there's a chair.
So we'd like to start with Design and Technology Studio, which is Fuse. Fuse was brought to us in the fall by Dr. McGee invited us to listen to a presentation from a person from Northwestern University who had a program that's popular in Illinois and different school districts there. We came to the presentation along with teachers from a couple of other schools and administrators and listened to the presentation. Elizabeth and I took it back to JLS and we're talking about it. Other teachers heard, were very interested and asked if we could actually make it into an elective at JLS for next year. So Elizabeth's going to talk further about what piqued our interest.
Okay. So basically, the folks over at Northwestern.
I'm sorry, would you say your name again?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Elizabeth Fee, and I'm
Okay.
the math instructional supervisor at JLS.
Okay.
The folks at Northwestern have developed a program that involves 17 different STEAM projects. STEAM meaning science, technology, engineering, arts and design, and math. Students come to the course. They select a project they're going to work on. They get to complete the project, and then they can choose whether to continue on within sort of that same level, or move on to the next level in that same area, or whether they want to go try something in a slightly different area. So it is totally student-driven, and the role of the teacher in this course is as a coach rather than as a lecturing-type instructor. It is a studio environment. Some of the really exciting projects include navigating robot through an obstacle course, programming a mobile application, building 3D jewelry, glasses, or keychains using the 3D printer, working with music and lighting to develop various activities, building spaghetti structures, etc. So lots of different things to appeal to a lot of different students. This course will have no prerequisite. It would be a semester-long course. It would be open to 7th and 8th graders. And we're expecting a low to zero homework rate for the course. So as we find out more, we'll figure it out. It is tied nicely to, specifically, I looked at the math practice standards, but it ties really well to perseverance, following procedures for science, using technical information for science, focusing on precision and use of structure within math, building viable arguments, which ties to all kinds of the CSS standards. there are content standards covered. However, I want to be very clear that there's no reduction of content standard from any of the core classes. This would just be an additional view of certain standards, if you will. That's it.
Great. Hello, I'm Chris Molly, and I'm the Director of Drama over at JLS. I do the shows and also teach the drama classes there. And over the years, we've sort of evolved the program with various skill sets that have popped up in shows mostly that we've produced there, including shows like The Hobbit and Alice in Wonderland, The Jungle Book, all of which required at various times fantasy or lively type creatures to happen on stage. And we brought a lot of fun mask making and makeup and costumes and puppetry to the process. And along the way, it started to feel a lot like something that could lend itself really in a fun way to an interesting class that wouldn't necessarily be based entirely on putting a show up, but rather giving students a more hands-on approach to some of these techniques, and also exploring storytelling skills as they invent their own imaginary creatures, explore techniques that have been used to bring fantasy creatures to life. Over the years, artists that have inspired today's artists, such as Ray Harryhausen, and of course, we've got the Spielbergs that the kids are mostly familiar with now, and of things like coming out of Weta Workshop with Peter Jackson, and seeing how a character goes from literature, such as Gollum, to being on the film, and the techniques that happen with that, and exploring some of those techniques in the classroom, so giving the students an opportunity to make masks, to make makeup, advanced makeup, puppetry, and even some stop-motion animation. All of this is a relatively flexible environment, working on the kids' own skill sets, their own comfort zone, mostly work getting done in class, though I can't promise they aren't going to go home and try and play around with some of the recyclables in their house and put things together as well, which is strongly encouraged, and we would invite them to bring that in, and ultimately it would come to a completion at the end when they would perform this character in some way, either on the stage, creating a short film, and presenting it perhaps as a showcase as well to families and friends.
Thanks.
Great.
Oh yes, that's the same one.
Hi, my name is Jen Caluzzi, and I'm the English Department Instructional Supervisor at JLS. And I would like to introduce Jamie Buttle, who teaches leadership at JLS and broadcast as well, KJLS. But she has also been a member of the English Department teaching public speaking. And she brought this proposal to us, writing for multimedia. I took it back to the English Department. They got really excited about it, just with the cross-curricular and Common Core standards that she's planning on covering.
So technology is not going away. It has a lot of advantages, but it also has a lot of consequences. And children and adults struggle with this. I actually just watched a Dr. Phil episode before we got to this meeting. And the whole thing was about mean girls in their 20s not understanding that their comments, their thumbs up, their things on social media have these really negative consequences. They didn't understand that they were bullying. And so if adults are having these problems with digital media ethics and thinking about consequences, our middle school students really need to be taught, just as we teach them outside the classroom what is right and what is wrong. We need to teach them what is right and what is wrong when they're on Facebook, when they're writing blogs, things like that. So this is where Writing for Media came from. It's going to be a semester-long class with no prerequisite. We want to provide a digital toolbox for the students that prepares them for that 21st century world. It teaches them how to write for very specific media online, because what you write for a blog is very different than what you're going to write for a screencast to teach someone how to do something. And the course is differentiated for students of all learning abilities. So we go to where the students are at, we meet them there, and go from there. And it's in alignment with all the Common Core state standards, especially technology, and also the California Blueprint for Education Technology. And so the rationale is develop mindful users of online technology, but it's a dedicated course on social media literacy beyond the skills that we currently teach in our core classes and disciplines. This would really allow the core teachers to concentrate on teaching their subject matter and content rather than spending time teaching how to screencast, how to do a podcast. And in addition, we have an epidemic of cyberbullying, irresponsible social media posts, copyright violation, piracy, because they're naive. They lack the knowledge, and they're anonymous. And they don't realize that we leave a digital footprint that lasts your entire life. And when you go to work at Google in 10, 15 years, they can pull you up and they can see everything you've ever done. And you can't erase it. So we want to teach them digital writing skills, absolutely, but also really tackling ethical aspects of the cyber world. So some of the projects that we're going to be doing is a whole unit on digital citizenship, online identity, and digital literacy. Common Sense Media has great packages of different curriculum that I already use and apply in some of my classes, but we could really get involved with that. The simplest thing, using Creative Commons to create an artwork project where they have to actually credit all of the people correctly, the music, the photos, all of those things, so that they understand what is legal, what is not legal, and we can explore those sort of ethical issues.
Awesome.
Wonderful.
That's great, yeah.
I'm just overwhelmed and excited and wish I were in middle school right now. I have 2 kids in middle school, but they're at Terman, unfortunately. There is a...
Did you want to do the fourth one?
Yeah, well, there's a second part to
Okay,
this.
should we do
So
this part first?
I don't know how, would my colleagues, would you like to hear everything? Yeah, and then we'll move on.
So do you want to hear the second part of our new
Yes, why
courses?
don't we? Yes.
Okay.
But don't go anywhere, you guys.
Great. I have Jordan Principal Greg Barnes here as well, in case you have any questions of him. Last summer, actually the beginning of the semester of this school year, our superintendent, Dr. McGee, charged our department with investigating, looking at the feasibility of offering Mandarin at the middle school level. This has been an ongoing request and issue over many years. We've had the K-5 Mandarin immersion program in place at Ohlone since 2008-09. So we looked at 3 different options. We looked at implementing beginning in 7th grade and making it all the students going to one middle school for Mandarin. We do offer Mandarin every year at all 3 middle schools, but we never have enough to run a course because I think it's 10 to 12 at JLS, 10 to 12 at Jordan, and about 2 to 4 at Terman. So that was one option. We thought that was a little bit too disruptive to students to go to 6th grade for 1 year and then go to 7th and 8th grade at another school. We looked at including Mandarin in the wheel, which has a lot, I mean, we could go into details, but what we really landed on was the logic of having an extension of the Ohlone immersion program in some form to offer a bridge for those students between the K-5 immersion program and then the high school courses. So we've looked at, we actually have a principal who's interested in trying and piloting this at Jordan. He's got his structure already set up on his master schedule for Spanish immersion. So the students who go through Escondido, through that K-5 program, who successfully complete it, can take, it's a frozen period that he has in period 4. The students, it's not truly immersion, but it is a bridge to the high school. And students get 1 class 4 times a week in Spanish, and that's what we would propose, that we do the same thing during that same frozen period for Mandarin. The pilot, if you approve it, would include starting next year with 6th grade, 1 section. The following year, moving to 6th and 7th grade, 1 section, and then the 3rd year, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So we would be starting with a 0.2 FTE next year, 0.4 the following year, and 0.6 at the end of that 3-year program. If you do approve this, we would be able to move on to the next phase, which would include writing the curriculum, looking into the textbook orders, developing a qualifying test for students who might move into the district, and hiring a teacher, which has been a challenge in the past. We would want to get started on that. And the goal would be to return with all of the details to you on June 23rd at that board meeting.
Okay, so colleagues, we have some cards here. I believe they all want to address the middle school Mandarin immersion. So should we start with that and then come to board comments?
Sure.
Okay. So I'm going to call up Grace Ma, followed by Haitao Zhu, followed by Sue Kramer, followed by James Porter.
Thank you. My name is Grace Ma. I'm a parent and a volunteer with the Palo Alto School District. I wanted to thank the staff and board members and the superintendent for putting together this proposal. I think that it's really exciting to have the Mandarin Immersion Program expanded to middle school. I want to also give you some information from Dr. Amado Padilla, who's been studying the Ohlone program for about the whole 6 years, 7 years. And I wanted to let you know that he and Dort Silva and Xiaoqiu Xu are going to have a paper appear in the spring issue of Foreign Language Annals, showing that exiting a 5th grade Ohlone immersion students are performing on the stamp proficiency test at approximately the same level as a 3rd and 4th level high school Mandarin, Gun and Pali students. The importance of this is that if MI students exit Ohlone and then have no Mandarin instruction until high school, they will likely regress in their proficiency, indicating that the full potential of a MI program was not achieved. So I'm really glad to see that we're going to have something to fill the gap for these kids. I also wanted to put in a plug that I'm particularly interested and appreciate opportunities to participate in the consultants analysis of the World Language Program that's going to be done, and that we include then the possibility of FLES and other immersion expansions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Haitao Zhu, followed by Sue Kramer, followed by James Porter. Why don't you all come over here? So, thank you.
Hi, my name is Haitao Zhu. So I'm a parent of the current a student at the MI program at Ohlone. So although we are only in the program for 1.5 years, but we had a great experience. And at the time we decided whether to join the MI program, we had also, because our family speak Chinese at home, so we had an opportunity to always send my son to the after-school program with the weekend Chinese school and at Ganghai. So, but we eventually decided that we will have a much better experience at Ohlone at MI program, and I'm so glad that we have done this. And I really wish that the MI program will extend to some extent, extend into middle school, because if the language you don't use it for 3 years, by the high school, all that hard work you have done in the elementary school will be ruined. Let me put it this way. So also, I always thought, being a Chinese myself, and I always thought that I always heard that there's not enough interest in learning Chinese in Palo Alto, which I totally disagree. It's because like, what if nobody is interested, only like 20 kids in the whole district are interested, then why do you see this like massive crowd at Ganghai on the weekends? So what I think is happening is that actually we did not offer good enough like advanced Chinese Mandarin program at middle school, because the MI program in Ohlone, it's wonderful, but it's small, and the Chinese parents who haven't been able to win the lottery will send their children to the after-school program to keep the Chinese going. So I think that if you offer advanced Chinese instruction in the middle school level, that will be, I think you will get much more interest than what you are doing now. And I have been investigating what are the choices are for the MI program students after the after Ohlone, and the teacher has told me that they join the after-school program because they're so advanced, and if they go to a regular, just a beginner level, it's not going to be sufficient. So I think that the program that you are proposing at Jordan is a great step, but I think based on the population, that a lot of the Chinese parents are in South Palo Alto, and I think it would be great that this advanced Chinese instruction can be expanded to other middle schools, for example, at JLS. I think there's always the fact that you're doing. Okay, I take 5 more
You
seconds.
can finish your sentence if you want.
So, well, I think that if you do a different survey, such that will you be interested in will there be enough students interested in advanced Chinese instruction? I think that survey number will be totally different. I strongly suggest the board to consider that.
Thank you
Okay,
so
stop right
much.
there.
Sue Kramer, followed by James Porter.
Hi, my name is Sue Kramer. I'm a parent at Ohlone and volunteer in the district. So first, I just want to say thank you so much for listening to parents in the district and working so quickly to make this happen. Dr. McGee, when you came to Ohlone at the beginning of the year for one of your 18 cups of coffee that day, you said that we would see this happen by the end of the school year. So thank you all for making that a reality. There is a ton of excitement at Ohlone right now. I only have children at Ohlone, so I can't speak for the community beyond Ohlone, but I can speak for a lot of parents at Ohlone who are very excited that this is going to be a reality. So the only question that I would ask, and I don't deign to understand any of the intricacies and how difficult it is to manage a middle school calendar, course scheduling, blocks, zones, electives. That is not my, I have not dived into any of it yet. I haven't had to. I will one of these days. I'll have to. But I guess the question I would ask, and Ms. Townsend, it takes me back to a conversation we had last year over the 13th school debate. And you brought up in such an inspiring way, what is our vision for this program? And we had a rare opportunity here, would have had we considered or gone forward with opening a 13th elementary school. We have a rare opportunity to initiate a program that will serve a big chunk of our population and bridge Mandarin language, but potentially, if we want to consider it, also a cultural bridge, potentially a philosophical bridge between the Ohlone philosophy and beyond, potentially a 21st century learning bridge, maybe a student-centric project-based, student-driven approach to learning. So again, I guess I would just ask, and I haven't seen or been privy to any of the dialogue that's gone on in coming forth with a decision to have it, in a frozen period for 4 hours, modeled on the SI program. I also do not know the details on the success of the SI program today and whether that is a great model to follow in the footsteps of. It may be. I would just encourage the board and all of us, and there are many parents who would love to participate in the dialogue if it were, a community opportunity to formulate either the structure of this offering in some way, or at a minimum, the content and the philosophy driving the offering that we will move forward with. But thank you very much for moving it forward one way or another.
Thank you. And James Porter.
Hi, I'm James Porter. So I'm a parent of 2 kids that are in the Mandarin Immersion Program, 2nd and 4th graders. So I guess this is my 5th year with MI. I'd like to make a quick statement in support of the middle school Mandarin Immersion pilot. I believe that the Mandarin Immersion Program at Ohlone has done a great job providing bilingual education to a big cohort of enthusiastic Mandarin learners, my kids included. I think a bridge to high school is definitely needed to keep this education, also the language proficiency, and in the case of my kids, I think the enhanced confidence they've gotten from tackling a challenging experience like this to keep those things from being wasted. 3-year gap is really significant at the 6th grade level, especially given the social and academic demands that come up in middle school. I think the pilot would be a great opportunity to maintain fluency and interest in Mandarin to Ohlone Mandarin immersion kids, but also potentially other students who are Mandarin proficient by other means. And the final point is I think the pilot would provide a more financially feasible and also more accommodating option for many parents than weekend and after-school Chinese schools, which put significant demands on kids' energy and time, especially in a valuable weekend and after-school time. And one last point with, after-school programs and weekend programs is that it's very difficult for non-Chinese parents, Chinese-speaking parents, to support them in those after-school programs. Expectations are very different in terms of homework preparation and so forth. Thanks.
Thank you.
Back to you. Welcome back.
Yeah,
We're gonna.
thank you.
We're gonna start with Terry.
We will start with Terry.
Miss Godfrey.
Welcome back. You snuck in when I wasn't looking. So let me start with the JLS table. I'm going to echo what Ms. Emberling said and ask if I can come back to middle school. The classes at this end of the table have that sort of make X flavor that makes you want to like get your hands dirty and do stuff. And like my sophomore kid is a welder. He likes to weld things. And so I can just see where that just having that in your school day just feels great. And at the other end of the table, any more emotional intelligence we can get around what happens online feels like a good thing, because I now have high schoolers, and so I've seen lots of things that I wish I hadn't seen. So I appreciate the heart you put into that, and they sound great, so I want to come. So if I turn my thinking this way, I have to say, in the spirit of full disclosure, I wasn't supportive of MI when it was launched originally in the pilot. So as I've said before here, I was on the FLES task force exploring FLES, and when it came with a price tag of $1.1 million, it seemed like a non-starter when MI was cost neutral.
Oh, sorry.
I can keep going.
Sorry. You can have at least another minute.
You can, yeah. You can keep going.
So that's, in the spirit of full disclosure, I was a FLES person, and I really was hoping that we would do that. But I understand the cost constraints at the time, and we'll get back to FLES. But now that we have kids who are there and loving it, and in the spirit of making decisions that are best for students, we have little warm bodies doing MI, and we need to make sure that what we do is best for them. So in the spirit of that, let me ask just a few questions. Hanover Research is doing some foreign language feasibility study for us. So one question is, I'll just run through, I have a few questions, so I'll just run through them. Is that work going to include MI and SI? So that's one question. At Jordan, I believe this is a 1 hour a day, 4 days a week. So some kids are going to be doing SI in that hour, some kids are going to be doing MI in that hour. Presumably there's some remedial work being done in that hour. What do the other kids do with that 4 hours a week? And I hope you're not going to say it's lost time. There's so many kids in middle school. Like, what does this do to the population at Jordan? Like, how many kids does it add that you wouldn't normally expect? When my kids went to Jordan, there was 900 kids there, and it felt crowded. And I know you're like 1,100 now or something. I mean, just like trying to navigate the halls is like being on the 101 freeway. And then my standard question around all pilots is cost. You gave us the 0.2.4.6 FTE, so if there's other costs, I'd like to hear. And then the timing and evaluation plan for the pilot.
Right.
Yeah, I think we'll start with the Hanover piece. That they are looking at our entire world language program, and they will be addressing Spanish immersion and Mandarin immersion. As far as
just to add on, and that goes through high school.
It goes through high school,
K through 12. Okay,
right.
great.
And just as a matter of interest, Thursday is our big staff development day in the district, which is planned by our instructional supervisors, our steering committees for secondary, and it's a historic event because we're having the world language department meeting with the Mandarin immersion teachers. So it's the first time that, and the Spanish immersion teachers, K through 12, it's the first time they've all gotten in the same room and they're talking about expectations and benchmarks and all that sort of thing. Do you want to address the
Sure. Hi, good evening. Absolutely. All three middle schools have what is referred to lovingly as a frozen period. Essentially, we have 5 periods to teach 4 subjects. So depending on the week, at Jordan, it is our 4th period, and our 6th grade students are receiving a number of different services during that period. And we also have Spanish immersion students, and now we'll have, with your approval, Mandarin students that will be pulled from that period. The question is, what happens with the students who don't receive any sort of special education during that period? It is an immersive experience for our students to be pulled out in our languages, and again, some of our students are receiving remedial services. And for the rest of our students, it's an opportunity to go deeper. So our 6th grade colleagues have an opportunity to go deeper and say into a science lab or go deeper into mathematical concepts. So no new content is taught during that period, but between the 2 6th grade team members, they coordinate weekly on what's going to happen during that 4th period. But in general, it's an opportunity to go deeper into concepts being taught in class.
And did you say that was just 6th grade?
The way that 6th grade is currently structured, yes, that's only happening in 6th grade.
So in 7th and 8th grade, this cohort of students would just take their Mandarin immersion as an elective. But 6th grade is structured very differently. As far as the cost, we'll have everything itemized for you in June when this returns. But there would be textbook cost and curriculum writing cost, that sort of thing, just to get it up and running. And the number of students that we would add, a section is 24 students. So some of these students at Aloni are already slotted to go to Jordan, so we're not sure exactly how many that would be. But it would be a choice. So students at Aloni would have to fill out the choice application if they wanted to go 6th, 7th, and 8th grade at Jordan. And Mr. Barnes, do you want to talk about March 2nd?
Sure.
So that you could, some people had a question.
So again, with your approval, we would like to have an information night on March 2nd, where we currently have our Spanish immersion night scheduled. We would offer a second hour for our Loney families. We're very excited at this opportunity. We're very excited to get to introduce ourselves to you, not only to talk about your vision for Mandarin immersion, but also our plans for what the curriculum is going to look like. And also to talk about the transition between Aloni and Jordan, and really just to say hi and hit the ground running.
Right, and as far as the evaluation, Grace referred to that test. There's actually tests of language fluency on that. And the other thing we're getting through, and Charles, you may want to talk a little more of the Hanover study for this, is exemplary practices, which includes exemplary evaluation tools from other districts around the country that do this sort of thing. So, did you want to add anything on the Hanover piece or not? I didn't know.
No, just that that's, we'll come back and have more information about that study, which is big and comprehensive, and it's also taking place with the alignment study that we're doing at the 2 high schools between the 4 major subject areas. So it's big, it's comprehensive. It's also partially a feasibility study to take a look at what the possibility of offering world language at the elementary school, and having this a real clear picture of a K-12 fully articulated world language program. So a lot of nice features in that. One particularly interesting piece is the IS at one of the high schools. They had already initiated their own conversations around talking about world language K-12 and having this comprehensive aligned program and what that might look like. So I think it'd be a good partnership with Hanover and the high school teachers that have already started that work.
Mr. Dauber.
So on the JLS, I share the excitement about this program, and I'm really happy to see middle schools being a source of innovation. I see Ms. Foster in the audience, and I remember during the campaign that she often spoke about the kind of untapped potential of our middle schools in terms of being a place that could be more innovative and interesting and exciting. And so I'm really happy to see that happening. One of the things I think we talked about was how, we're in Silicon Valley. It should feel like you're in Silicon Valley when you walk into one of our schools, and it's going to feel more like that when you walk into JLS with these classes. So I think that's terrific. In terms of Mandarin immersion, I think it would be desirable if we were receiving this proposal at the same time that we were also considering a proposal for an extension of language instruction into the elementary grades as well, because I think that part of the concern in the community around the first introduction to Mandarin immersion and to some extent around this proposal is a sense that, you know, we should be providing the good things about foreign language instruction more broadly. And I think that's true, and I hope that we will get to that point. But it's also the case that the timing of this is such that this is a kind of a target of opportunity. And so I think we should seize that because, as Ms. Godfrey said, we have actual students who need a bridge, and it doesn't really make sense for us to make the kind of investment that we do in having a Mandarin immersion program at Ohlone and not provide a way for those students to continue their instruction. It's not fair to those students, and it also isn't a good use of those educational resources to leave them in that state. So I'm very pleased to hear this proposal and certainly to support it when it comes time to do that. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Townsend.
Lots of innovation to be excited about. So I guess I got the technical questions asked by Ms. Godfrey with regard to the Mandarin program. I am interested in all the programs at JLS. Someone referred to the Common Core state standards. How do the electives in general fit into the Common Core state standards? I don't know, Sharon, you want to deal with this or, yeah.
Camille. So I would suggest that all of our teachers are not just familiar but well versed with the Common Core state standards, because the state standards have a third category called CTE and other standards. I can't remember the official title of it, but it's very long. And we have had those conversations about writing across the curriculum and supporting literacy in all aspects of a student's life in middle school or in our courses at JLS. And how we support the English teachers, that literacy doesn't happen just in the English classroom or just in the math classroom. So our teachers are really well versed. I think, you know, we have an elective drama teacher here. In order to be a drama teacher, you have to have an English credential. So there are certain aspects of it that are very important. And we have, Jamie here who also teaches only electives and also has to have an English credential for most of what she teaches. So I think that those pieces of addressing standards are naturally woven in the way that our teachers are looking at their curriculum and instruction when they are reflective of their practice.
So how does, so this is just a really technical, basic question. At the high school, when we look at new classes, teachers are always trying to get some A through G accreditation so that students can take them and
we don't have to worry about that.
Well, and so that was my question. So in middle school, are there any requirements
no
like that? Wow.
No. We don't have credits.
Right.
Kids are in school the entire day. It's, they're required to be there
so
and participate. And it's, yes.
Okay. Well, that is fascinating. I've been
We
here
have a little bit
while
of
and
freedom.
Yeah, you do. So let me ask, I see the app development. Are we doing computer programming in the, programming class? Or not
we have
programming
computer
class,
programming we have computer programming that we've been offering at JLS for a number of years. The computer programming that you're seeing in the Design and Technology Studio is a component, like a module for exposure to students for computer programming. I'm sure if you want to speak to it, Elizabeth, you can.
So the programming they're using here, again, we haven't been through formal training yet, but the program that they're using here allows you to do module development, which allows us to run this. It's not really like a programming language per se, but it's using a development device, right, that will allow you to build up the module, to build up your app, et cetera. So it's a little bit different than a computer programming course, but they are getting the same concept of building those blocks of code.
Well, I love it when you say we haven't done that training yet, because Kelly Bickle was here earlier. I don't know. I guess she's gone now, about professional training. Presumably, this will be accredited. This is exciting. I mean, it's you guys are being able to push yourselves, bring your students along with you on all kinds of dimensions. It's very fun.
that's enough questions. I think I'm really excited. These are and I just loved that. And thank you, teachers, for mentioning that Dr. McGee said, "Hey, there's this class. You guys come to it." I mean, thank you for giving us that history. I mean, this is how a system really works well. And was the superintendent comes in and said, "Hey, teachers, you come to this," and then they take that idea and they go elsewhere and bring it to our students. It's wonderful. And then thank you again thank you, Dr. McGee, who comes to Ohlone and saying, you know, we got to make this right for our students. We got to meet the needs of our students. And here we have Principal Barnes, who has stepped forward with Spanish immersion and a Mandarin immersion. Thank you, Dr. McGee, for making things happen. This is pretty exciting to me. And I appreciate that your answer to the community about, well, what will it look like? And you say, oh, we'll have a March discussion about this. You know, I'm just grateful that there is this window of opportunity. But you're right. I mean, your children need to know what the program looks like. Does it meet their needs and all these kinds of things? But gosh, what a group of committed parents and community members as well to see this program through. Let's see, are there any other questions that prospectively that I'm not thinking of that I should be asking?
I think you got it.
Okay. All right. Good. Well, and I do know, the question regarding assessment. Back to you folks. And it's part of our strategic plan is that we assess everything we do. How are you going to assess whether you're successful? And so, like, what are you going to lay down what your objectives are, and then at the end, how are you going to do that?
So first, we have to get enough interest to run any of the courses. So that's success indicator number one.
So what do you run at? How many can you run at? 15?
Well, it depends. I'll just use a elective course that we brought here last year, Money Matters, which we found a teacher to teach, lovely Elizabeth Fee. And obviously we needed, in that particular case, we needed a year's worth of students. So it was a semester-long course. So we need to fill it for 2 semesters. Because our teachers are working, all of these teachers are tenured at 100% at the moment. Mm-hmm. And we could hire in a teacher if we have interest. It's based on interest and how we sort of make those decisions around people's overall schedules and jobs, et cetera. So there's a lot more to it.
So
I don't think we'll have a problem.
Is there a normal, like 20, 15?
We won't entertain it if it's not at least 24.
Oh, okay.
For a semester. So if we have to have, like, in Money Matters case, we had to have roughly 50 kids, 48, you know. So
I would have taken it. Yeah.
We're running it. It's packed.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That's the same concept that applies here, though, depending on who the teacher is, depending on how many students we have that are interested in it, and then decisions are made that way. But our first indicator, of course, is sign-ups, and that information goes out to students and families tomorrow.
So you deem success numbers of kids in the class who keep coming back.
They don't have a choice about coming back, right? But because it's required to be in school. But I think that's number one. Then comes the second part, which is sustained enrollment is a really huge piece. We started out years ago with no creative writing program, and it was just an after-school club, and we just had loads and loads of kids signing up for this after-school writing program. So we turned it into an elective, and it has a sustained enrollment every year, and the kids who sign up for it enjoy it and continue on. There are assessments within the course. So I mean, when you're asking me how do we measure the success of the program, I think there's obviously, do you have enough enrollment to offer it year after year? And that means that students are engaged in the program if they're interested in it. And then the other piece is, of course, within the course, you know, how is the teacher of each of the specific electives going to assess whether or not they've learned the skills they're trying to teach? So I think that's layered for what you're asking.
And I'm going to let my colleagues go on, but it is interesting. Some teachers, we look at how well kids do in
Mandarin or Spanish or math or whatever. And the electives is one of those areas that you can, have a little playfulness with, I guess. So.
Yes, but there are standards that they are writing, aligning the curriculum to, so that's part of it.
Okay, well, that's good. I like her to jump in and say that. All right, thank you. Go ahead.
Ms. Emberling.
All right. Okay. So, 2 questions about Mandarin immersion. Definitely support it. We have all these kids, our warm bodies in in elementary school. A bridge is needed. I'm wondering if you did think about any of the other middle schools, and if you looked at where the families live who are in MI at Aloni. In other words, I know it's a choice school, so they could be driving from all over. We had a public comment that made me think about that. A lot of our families live in South Palo Alto, and I was just thinking, oh, but they're going all the way to Jordan. I'm going to get a call from Penny Ellison about safe routes to schools. I know if I didn't bring that up in terms of are we increasing, and have we looked at the impact of traffic in terms of where the students are coming from?
So what we had to look at is the master schedule, unfortunately, or fortunately, that really drives a lot of what we can offer at a middle school. Mm-hmm. And because these are all choice programs, each middle school has a choice program. Jordan's is the Spanish immersion. It just made logical sense that since he has his master schedule structured so he could fit that in there, he already is doing it for Spanish, that we could expand that. It remains as a choice program for an immersion, our 2 immersion programs in the district. Choice program students who sign up for choice programs live all over the district. That's just kind of inherent with what that system is. So I don't know if that answers your question. But
Can I ask your choice? So Connections is at JLS, and that's the choice program there, and then direct instruction at Terman, so that we have choice programs at all the middle schools.
All 3 middle schools.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so that was just my question in terms of traffic. And then I think at the other 2 middle schools, I know at Terman, where my kids are, that if you do take a language and you take an instrument or choir, then you don't ever have room in your schedule for an elective at all. Is that true for all 3 middle schools? It is.
Those are elective. Those are electives.
Right. I don't consider them electives. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay, those were my questions for that. And yay, I'm so excited about these classes. Again, super fun to think about it. What I really like is how these really do fit within the strategic plan goals that we're talking about, and particularly the focus goal about promoting alignment and consistency while allowing for innovation. I think you're doing a wonderful job at that. I can see the connection between our piloting of maker spaces in our elementary schools with our robotics programs in high school, and then here we have this design and technology studio that we're sticking into our middle schools. We're starting to think more like a pre-K-12 district, and I really appreciate that sort of vision. The creature creations, oh my goodness, so wonderful. I worked for George Lucas for a long time as an editor, and the Creature Shop was such a fun place to hang out there. And the fact that kids can start doing puppetry and mime and mask work and film at middle school, which I did in graduate school, is wonderful. And the writing for multimedia just embraces our social emotional goals, our focused, all the work we've done in the past few years around bullying and cyberbullying and raising the topic through tons of programs and efforts we've made in our schools. It just dovetails so nicely with the efforts we've been making to create students as critical consumers of media and of information in general. It's such a useful skill. And my one question about it was, how do you, I am totally ready to take this class. How are you marketing this one towards students? Because to make it exciting and a draw, I'm just, not that it doesn't sound exciting, but it sounds exciting to me because I know all the great benefits.
I think I'm really sort of highlighting the plan, design, write, and publish your digital media so that they get that excitement about we are creators. We're going to make these amazing products, and you have choice in what your topic is. You're not stuck to just doing the one thing I assign. So they get to follow their passions when they're doing these projects. And also, the digital citizenship, when we make it about them. So I say, so you create a song, or you create a blog, or a podcast, and somebody was to acquisition that and not give you credit for it, how do you feel about that? And then they really start to connect, oh, if I do that, that could happen to me. And so sort of the digital citizenship stuff that might not sound fun becomes so important and relevant to what they're doing.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much. Really wonderful, fabulous work. We have amazing teachers in our district.
Thank you. Yeah, that definitely is the case. I don't know, Ms. Alfak, how you do it, but every year you bring in a suite of new, excited well, not necessarily new teachers, but excited teachers with new ideas. And I know that when my son was at JLS, he said, I wonder why I can't just stay here for high school. Because there's all this exciting things going on. For those of you who haven't spent any time at JLS, the Industrial Technology Department is a gem that's unbelievable. The Electric Moose Club that you can only get into if you're in 8th grade, and then even then you sort of have to make your case to be in it. You guys have so many really fun electives. Ms. Fee, I don't know, you must just think about these in the shower, right? Every year you come in here with some class that you need to have us do. I wanted to take that Money Matters class. Doesn't surprise me a bit that it's full, and I bet there are kids that wanted to take it that had to take something else because there wasn't enough room. You know, creative writing, when I was a kid, was sort of a dry thing. You weren't that thrilled with it. But the fact that we've been able, and at your site, you've been able to turn it into this exciting thing, makes me think that writing for multimedia is going to be very popular. The number of middle school, particularly girls, but boys too, that want to blog is really unbelievable. And so, wow, we better be teaching them how to do that safely. So I think this is really, really needed. Chris, don't you have a background in like making fake noses and things like that?
It's one of those little things I sort of infused into the drama productions, and we had many opportunities, and the more things I saw the kids making and the more things that I would just throw at them and say, I don't know how we're going to do this yet, but maybe you can figure something out. And what they came up with was so far beyond what my expectations were. I think after about 4 years, I decided this needs to be a class. This needs to be an opportunity for them to really, and of course we get the wonderful setup with the portfolios and
Right.
the exit interviews. And how exciting is it to be able to bring a mask or something like that to it?
Well, I mean, how many theater teachers have you heard of that know how to make, you know, fake ears and fake noses and things like that? So
I'm usually going around teaching them how to do it. I don't think there's too many out there right now.
Yeah, no, I think there's some very innovative things going on, and it's coming out in these classes. And are we allowed to come and audit these classes? Probably no room in the classroom
Please
for us
do.
to come and stand in the back.
Can we make you up to look like something?
Oh, yeah, that would be good, yeah. I'm sure people would have a good time with that. Yeah, so I mean, I'm thrilled and delighted that you've brought forward new, interesting and engaging, because engagement is so important. And, you know, when you talk to people and they talk about middle school, they're like, oh, yeah, when I was in middle school, you know, like it was a bad thing. I don't think it's that anymore. And it's because of ideas like this. The Mandarin program, if we've taken children through, all the way through elementary school, and we already have a Spanish program that we can model it to, this shouldn't be so hard, and hopefully this will help us be successful. Do we have a, we talked about for JLS what the minimum was just to hold a class. What's the minimum for this class?
I think our standard is 24 at approximate. We realize we're going to have to address that. A lot of it's going to depend on how many people sign up for the choice program. If we are too low to run a class, we can open it up to kids who could test into it. That's part of our plan.
And, but we won't open it up for testing in until we see that we don't have enough, is that?
Right. The first priority goes to the Aloni students.
Do we have 24 fifth graders right now?
We have, yes, we have a section of 24.
So, of 24 fifth graders, because the mixed age thing.
Right.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. I'm sure we have some Mandarin speakers in the community that.
And people moving in, too.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
can test into it, too, coming into middle school.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just to add to that quickly, one of the considerations we take into account when we decide whether or not to run a class is class size. Considering that the district is going to be giving me an additional 0.2, we may not be as strict with our 24 count. So I'm going to pull some weight at Jordan, which I can do from time to time. It's going to happen.
Okay, well, I'm just, and this is a community concern. I mean, if we run a middle school class at 18, we better have a good reason to be doing it. So I'm making up a number. No one said to me that it was 18.
And I really anticipate we'll fill it to 24, but again, it's going to depend on a lot of details that we can bring back to you on June 23rd, sorry.
Great. Well, we don't, thank you all. This is a discussion item.
We have something more on this.
Yeah, just real quickly, one of my early mentors said there's always 100 reasons why you can't do something, so find a way to make it happen. And Greg, I really especially want to thank you for finding a way to make it happen, because there were enormous obstacles, as we know we heard about this summer and in past years. And Catherine, thank you for your leadership in the study. I mean, that was you who followed through on. It's easy to go to a cup of coffee and say something, but you did the heavy lifting, and you too.
It was a team effort.
Great, it was a team effort, yeah, and talk about a team, oh, my goodness. I don't know what to say. I'm really overwhelmed by the design thinking that went into this, and just, this is what education is all about, right? Challenging, expanding, unlimited potential. So I really can't thank you enough, all of you and Sharon, for creating the conditions that have this kind of inclusive and eagerness. And you all have full-time jobs and work so hard. It'd be really easy just to be home, and I don't know what's on TV Tuesday night anymore. But and here you are with us at 9:30.
We're on TV.
Yeah, the board. Yeah, we are. Yeah. Good point. But with all the energy, of your students, so just thank you so much. I'm not hearing any obstacles to approval next meeting.
Just so exciting. All of you, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
This is why we do this.
Okay. We are back to the enrollment committee.
Yes.
Dr. McGee.
Okay, good deal. The yeah, and there was a clerical issue here, so I'm gonna. Where's our audio visual here? Here we go. Thank you. So while we're pulling that up, this is our lone action item tonight. Following recommendations at the prior meeting, we did make some changes. And then one of the board members came in for a one-on-one and had some ideas, which I thought were good, to eliminate the jargon. But we'll leave the vision statement up for just a moment.
Other side.
Where was I here? So we're going to put the changes up on the big board in a moment. But before we really get started on the presentation, I really wanted to put the vision up because this committee needs to be driven by our vision statement. The here, you can have my if you're looking for it.
Do you have one of these? No, it's okay.
Yeah, there you go. There's an extra one.
He has it. Okay. Okay.
So this whole committee is being driven, by our vision to support students as they prepare themselves to thrive as global citizens of a rapidly changing world. To make that and the rest of this vision a reality, we need adequate facilities and space. we've had the last two committees that have met on this have been something along the line that the title and the charge has been very specific about a 13th elementary school. I had the opportunity to meet with past leaders. I had the opportunity to read the past reports. And as I talk with people, that need has not gone away. The need is still there and probably stronger than ever. And, so it's not either or, it's both and. And in addition, we are facing significant growing enrollment at our middle schools. Terman is just about out of capacity. JLS and Jordan will be nearing 1,200 students in the next 2 years. And we need to assure that our students don't get lost, that more students have the opportunities like we saw tonight. In addition, we have issues related to new housing coming in from Stanford, uneven growth in various places. Despite rising home values, property sales don't seem to be slowing down. We had more people in today to register. So we need to address this, and we need to address it on a system-wide approach, not just a 13th elementary school. So we tried to make the charge one that first of all allows for more than just a 13th elementary school, and a charge that also gives the board some options. So you have your handout here, I think, at your seat. The advisory committee, and now we can put up there, thank you, is charged with preparing multiple strategic evidence-based actionable recommendations. I'm going to stop right there for just a moment. We did take the phrase out using the design thinking process. That is probably, it means a lot to here because Stanford's across the street and we know about that, but it does mean different things to different people. It sounded kind of jargony, so I agreed with the board members' recommendation to prepare that out, to take that out. The idea about having multiple evidence-based recommendations is really to give the board some options. We don't want the board backed into you have this recommendation or that. We're looking at different options, and we may the committee may weight them and prioritize them. But the idea is not to come with here is the solution. We want to look at, again, this is part of the design thinking process, really understanding the complexity of the problem and developing multiple solutions and assigning some values to those. We want to do this within the parameters of our educational standards and our 13 community values, our 7 planning standards. Those are in your packet in Board Policy 7110. We're going to have representative stakeholders, despite the less than cordial welcome last night from one of the city council members at Los Altos Hills. The mayor was very gracious, and others asking that they have at least some way of input into this committee, if not membership on it, and we appreciate the mayor's support for the effort to look at this, and certainly that goes for our own city as well. You can see that we have some, the committee will be data driven. The board member recommended that we split up what was the fourth bullet down into really 2 different ones, and again, I thought that was a good idea. To talk about the numbers of overflowed students, which is now approaching 150. And what's interesting about these overflowed students, they just don't go to a school and stay there. They often go there for a while, then they're moved back, and because if they don't move back mid-year, they lose their place the next year. I mean, there's some real issues here with overflowed students that the committee needs to understand in detail. And this idea about we heard tonight about waiting lists, application, enrollment in the elementary and middle school choice programs. Some of these are oversubscribed, others less so. But how does that play into our whole enrollment management piece? So we have a charge for the board to approve. Also in your packet, you have the application. And the application, the charge that we approve tonight will be in the application. So those go hand in hand. There's still that old charge in the application. And we did not update the application. We're not going to have that due until the end of the month. We're going to push that back to February 27th. And assuming we have approval tonight. And we are actually prepared to place an ad in a local paper or 2 to make sure that the people know about this. So I think I'll stop and take questions, and this is, we're eager to hear ideas for the draft, answer questions you had. I know we've had a few questions from a board member in addition that we put out answers to, but I'll be glad to reiterate those answers if necessary.
Okey doke. Who's first on this? Mr. Dauber.
So I'm curious to know, Dr. McGee, what you think are the areas of uncertainty here. In other words, can we? I listened to your comments to introduce this. I agreed with them. You said we face some urgency around this, both at the elementary level and the middle school level. So I wonder how you'll focus the committee's charge on those areas where there's still uncertainty, and not necessarily sort of force them to run through the process of justifying where we already are.
Right. So I think a lot of the time we'll need to spend, first of all, with just hard data and hard information. We have information where our enrollment's been. We have information on the choice programs. I'd like to invite actually. We've met with folks from Stanford who laid out what the housing will look like. I'd like to have our demographer come in or Skype at least some way, have interaction with the committee and let them ask some questions about this as well. So the first part will really be sharing this information, answering questions about it, seeing what questions they have, and then just trying to expand their thinking. I've talked to Stuart Colson at the D School. He's also a parent, about perhaps doing a half day or even a day-long retreat just on this whole process. So even though we're not putting using design thinking in, but really help them understand that this is, you have to identify problems and root causes before you start coming up with solutions. So they are eager to help out with this.
Okay, that's terrific. I certainly, I'm convinced, having talked to a lot of folks during the campaign and also listened to the reports of various enrollment committees in the past, that there is a need for a 13th elementary school. There is likely a need to address our middle school size problem. I think that's generally accepted in the community. So I hope and expect that we'll get to that point where the next step will be to take up some concrete recommendations to go forward with this. I think there's a lot of appetite on the part of the community for kind of finally breaking the logjam on this. And so I'm happy to support the statement as you've written it here.
Ms. Townsend.
Let me ask a couple of questions, and I was trying to find it in my board packet, but let me just work off of this. I don't recall after the last advisory committee on enrollment receiving a final report. I think I mentioned that to you and my colleagues might. I don't think we ever received a final report.
We did not.
So I am, and you may have it, but there is a reason we didn't take initial recommendations from the first committee, and the second one, we didn't receive that report. So I'm a little concerned, not that people shouldn't look at the committee will be representative and use the following to inform their efforts. I am a little concerned when the boards did not adopt either of those plans, that there were some problems and significant problems. So it sounded to me like this was a pretty instructive piece, and I don't think it should be, because those committee recommendations weren't taken. So I would be, well, I don't mind people looking at it. I wouldn't use that to inform them that it was the way to go.
Maybe it's a form of the way not to go. I mean, I'm curious about that.
And that may be true, but that's not, it doesn't read that way to me.
Right.
So I just want you to be very cautious that it is the board didn't adopt either of these.
Right.
The second one, because they never saw it.
Yeah.
And the first one,
no, that's a good point. Yeah,
so to use these as a model, maybe not. So I think you need to be very careful because all the rest are, okay, projections, very factual lists, data. It's all data. This one is a little bit different. And I might even suggest you put it on the bottom so that the things that are very, very data-driven are very clear. And then some little asterisk about and just, there's probably a list of many other things they should be looking at, literature around school growth, there's other things. So I would be a little reticent to use that as the only item that they're looking to. So let me throw that out there, and I'll go through the rest, and maybe we can come back on how we can see what my colleagues think about that and how we can handle that. I think it was, in terms of the committee structure, I thought I read somewhere, and I'm sorry I didn't bring the right pages along, something about there was going to be co-chairs, one a teacher and one a parent. Did I read that
I know about
correctly?
parent. We like one staff and one not staff. So we like it to be co-chaired. So we have somebody internal and somebody external.
Somebody, okay. And so what?
So whether it's a parent or,
Okay.
we're going to take applications.
Plus, if I understand it correctly, you are having a facilitator.
I would like to have a.
Well, which I think
Yeah,
I
we
would
think
bet
you-
your board is for, no problem.
Okay.
But what would the roles of the co-chairs be then?
So the co-chairs really work on helping to set the agenda, gather the help gather the information. I'll tell you, at least our minority committee, we meet every Friday, the co-chairs and the facilitators and me, and plan out where we've been. We set up a long-term schedule at the get-go, right? A long-term work plan, and then we have our weekly meetings. Where are we in the work plan? Revise it. Make sure the subcommittees are doing their work. So that's where where was I last night? That's what I had to do last night as one of the co-chairs of the committee. Is go work with them on one of the subcommittees. So it's a group that works together. Facilitators primarily facilitate the meeting. They run it, but the co-chairs really are in charge of the planning. and staying with the
All
family.
right, so let me give this 2 cents. On the last committee report, which unfortunately we didn't get because I was so excited. It was a great group, and we didn't get that report. But a big concern of the board at that point, and on that committee, that there were teachers and parents of choice programs, neighborhood programs, different kinds of programs that were well represented, so that it was less important that was a teacher or a community member, and more that the different ways in which we teach is also respected on that committee. So I was trying to find that original committee charge from the last committee, because we're reviewing. Do you have that?
I think it's in your packet here,
Well,
on
or
page 2.
Perhaps a description, because we made a list of,
This is from a board agenda item of February 11th.
Yeah,
It
I read
describes
that
the
one,
charges
but-
for both those committees.
Right. I guess I read that, but it must have been further that choice programs, non-choice programs, we have representation from both in terms of administrators and community members. So I wouldn't want to lose sight of that. It's been it's good to have everybody in the room discussing these things. So I don't see a when it comes to a representative group, I think that needs to be included. So I don't know specifically,
charge? Okay.
or wherever you put. There's different parts of this.
So we have on the application, right, there's to identify where you're from here.
Well, and what kind of school, what kind of program your child is. I mean, we have 1/4 of our elementary school children are in choice programs, and the same for middle school programs. We have, obviously, Jordan determine, and we have a significant number of kids in choice programs, and we want to make sure that we're representative of those kinds of parents and interests in schooling that we have, and we don't want to lose sight of that.
Yeah.
So wherever we might put that, I'm not sure, but I don't want to lose sight of it.
Okay.
Where is it? And as someone else speaks, I am going to find where you have that actually listed, the committee.
It's, I think on page 3, the superintendent shall solicit broad input into the planning process, and may establish a facilities advisory committee consisting of staff, parents, guardians, business, local government, and other community representatives. Is that
right?
what you're
There you go.
referring
It
to?
would probably be there that
Yep.
that
And right below that, right.
and respective
Diversity in the community.
right diversity
Mhm.
right.
Here it's listed. Staff, parents, community.
So you'd
members,
like to
everyone.
have some specifics there.
Yeah.
So right below that, right, to this end, membership will consist of approximately 12 individuals representing, I'm reading on page 3 now, staff, parents, community members who do not have children in PAUSD schools, the city of Palo Alto, and local business. We had a comma issue there.
Yeah. I thought we had to have staff and parents who did not have any children in PAUSD or live in the city of Palo Alto or be part of local businesses. But to Ms. Townsend's point, I think what she's asking for is some specifics around the parent community that you're going to have in here. So if there are some things like representing choice programs and probably elementary parents, middle school, high school, the different levels. I don't know what things you're thinking about, but
and that's what we did in the last time, because I can assure you that if those very distinctive groups aren't reflected in the committee, we're going to have a problem with the results. So let's set it up to be a win
Right.
in the first place. So having choice and non-choice
And put that.
program participants or something.
I think, I'm sorry, I don't mean to
No, no,
jump
no,
in, but
go.
just
No, I
because you're
want
saying
you.
that. One thing we talked a lot about in the last 2 was making sure that the different levels of schooling were represented, because your perspective as an elementary school parent is completely different than your perspective as a high school parent. And
Right.
actually, your perspective after your kids have already gone through. I don't know where that
Right.
group it would be. Maybe the community members who do not maybe presently have children in PAUSD. Because there is a perspective once your children have already gone through that you just don't have while your kids are still in school.
Right, I think that's important to have that. So we could, yeah, we'll make that change. We can put that on the application, really easily, so. Well, grade level, choice program.
Okay.
Alumni.
Alumnus, right, yeah. Alumni parent, right?
That's what it, yeah,
Yeah. I mean, you can do both, right? You could have a student alumnus and
right.
yeah.
Probably get stronger opinions from parents.
I think so.
Yeah, I actually, Ms. Bateman-Caswell triggered my memory, because we did have those different categories, and we want this committee to be successful, and if you don't get those people represented right off the bat, it's just a problem. So, okay, that's my comments.
Right, thanks, and thank you for your help.
Yeah, it's great.
Ms. Emberling.
I just have 2 quick questions. One, I did send to you a while back. I guess this was on our previous agenda, right?
Yeah.
I was trying to look for it the other day. Anyway, my question was about how this intersects with our Coverly conversations with the city, because I know that we signed an agreement with the city that we will now enter into a joint planning, and so I'm wondering how this committee will dovetail with that.
So the idea, that's one reason, one of many reasons, there's some urgency to get this moving. Part of it is, we are overdue for, we need the space. But also, part of it is, we committed to prepare a 5-year master plan for Coverly. And I think that the work of this committee, frankly, should play a big part in the development of that master plan. And it may or may not, but that's one reason we really want to get this moving, so that this committee comes back and hears something, then we take this into that big master planning conversation.
Great. So will they get then the Coverly Community Advisory Committee packets.
You can add that to it.
Because
more than a packet.
that committee worked for how long?
Yeah.
Ms. Townsend?
That's a great idea.
16 months on
yeah.
on various ideas for that site.
Sure,
I
they
mean,
can
not to-
add it to these other advisory committees, and hopefully we'll get a copy of that. If you've got one of that last committee report, I want to see
We'll
it.
have to get some collateral
Yeah.
before we give that out. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so that's
we can
that's
put
great.
that in the Friday.
Yeah, yeah. And I think last time we had this committee, the elementary committee, we talked about, and I think you even included the board policy around planning and how we how we develop a master plan for district facilities using all the values listed. So this master plan for district facilities, we don't really have that. So I'm hoping this will inform the work of creating that
It
master
will.
plan. Okay.
Well,
And
to
then-
be fair, we have an old one.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do.
It needs to be
updated one,
updated.
Exactly. And the last question is that I've heard quite a bit about the large classes, fifth grade classes that are going into the bubble classes that are moving through our district into middle schools right now. And what are the plans for short-term relief? Because these are things that are happening next year in the fall and actually right now. So I know that this is long-term planning work. I'm just wondering if the committee will take up some of the short-term relief options or if that's going to be a separate process.
Yeah, that will be, we'll have to make that part of this year's budget process, how we deal with that. But that next fall will not be part of the committee's charge. I mean, I'd like to see recommendation, short, middle, and long term. So maybe in 16, 17, but there's not enough time to do really a good job for next year. So we have some ideas we'll build in the budget, but it's going to be crowded. I mean, it's, fortunately the sites are big. There's, a lot of room, the connection with most of the sites. Termins are small. So the other sites, there's room to grow. There's room if we need more portables, probably. Again, this is not, this involves, I think, a budget conversation and work with Bob and
I
the
just think
facilities group.
towards our goal number 5 of anticipating distractions before they happen, that there's a lot of chatter about what the district is going to do to
Next year,
ease the crowding for the next year or two. So I think we should, bring that to a board discussion before the end of the year, if at all possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Godfrey.
My colleagues had great questions, many of which I had on my list. So my list is now just down to one.
Okay.
So in the 13 community values that we're
Right.
using as the basis of the decision making, 2 of them are around class size and school size. I think they're number 8 and number 9.
Right.
So what feeds into that? Like, what does this same team have the charter to go look at that research, whatever the current research is on class size, school size?
And I
or
think that should be included in there. At one version, I thought I had included that, but that ought to be in there, the research on class size and school size.
Yeah, as long as we have whatever the current thinking is, because I think we have lots of urban legend about what it ought to be, but
Yes.
we must get the research.
Yeah.
That's it for me.
Yeah, I would like to echo Ms. Godfrey's request for that. I think there is a constituency that has very strong opinions about this.
What class size? You mean?
Actually, I think school size, there's a constituency, but I don't know that it's consistent across all the constituencies. I think we probably have a lot more agreement on class size across this community, better feeling about class size than we do have agreement on what we think school size should be. So just going back to the charge for this committee, I really liked, Dr. McGee, when you said you need to figure out the problem and the root cause of the problem before you come up with a solution.
Yeah.
And if we send a group out with a presupposed solution, then why are we wasting their time?
Right.
And I believe that this is how the last 2 committees have felt, that we wasted their time. And I'd like to think that all they're thinking would be something that we could use. So actually, they provided value for this next
Right.
committee. But if we're going to presuppose the solution before they get started, we probably shouldn't even have a committee.
Exactly right, yeah.
So I'm very supportive in your idea about going off and doing a retreat, using someone that can help walk people through a process, design thinking or engineering thinking or whatever, so that they start with the problem.
Crowding. Too many students.
Well, enrollment growth, okay? But they start with the problem, and then they get to a solution that way. And, you know, I'd love it if they walk out of something like that with 40 solutions, and what we're doing is whittling down to the best ones. I think unfortunately, the way we've given the charge before, it's like the only solution was 13th Elementary School.
Right.
And that might be a great solution, but if it's the only choice, you're not
Agreed.
really
Yeah, right.
doing it right. I just want to say that, and I said it before when Ms. Townsend was speaking, families who have already gone through the process of having their kids all the way through school are a really important constituency. And the other important constituency in this town is city school traffic safety committee person. I think every time when we talk about new facilities or even construction facilities, this is always an afterthought. And we always end up trying to dance around it in the end. I'd like to get in front of that. And also get in front of, I know one of the things that you had suggested in your list of things was demographic projections from the city. I think we need more than just the numbers. I mean, there's this whole ABAG requirement that's been put on the city for housing.
Right.
And it's been put on in some very specific ways that have to do with where housing's going to go. And so it's not just demographic projections, it's sort of where do we expect housing to go, and where do we expect traffic patterns to be, and where do we expect commuting patterns to be. That all needs to feed in. Or, you know, we'll come up with, oh yeah, we need to put a school here, and all the kids are in a different part of town
Right,
because
right.
that's how the city is planned. I don't think ABAG has had as big an effect on Stanford or Los Altos Hills.
Right.
It's really Palo Alto City. So that's my, oh, well, you know, because I got confused about this sentence, maybe this sentence could be rewritten, so that it's just clear that it's not parents without kids in the
Yeah.
district.
Okay, that's
that
not part
okay?
of the charge to approve, but we can.
Oh, okay, yeah, I guess it's
That's not part of the
Okay,
charge,
then,
yeah.
then that's
Okay.
fine. Then, I'm ready to
Yeah, I have another
entertain a
question.
motion.
Actually, given you talked about traffic, actually, under community values, that is one of our community values, safety, and it talks about minimizing neighborhood student traffic across busy streets such as Alma, El Camino, and Oregon. That being said, we do have students that cross over El Camino and others, so it says minimize, but that doesn't, so that's one of many, and I don't want to overemphasize one as to the others.
Which
That's
is why that's in the
Yes.
application.
Yes.
Because I want people with a balance of priorities here and not just, you know, 10 people that have all circle numbered. You know, I mean, you really need a balance.
And I saw that
yeah.
question put to you, and I appreciate the question,
Yeah.
whoever asked it, and, oh, did you? Good, okay. All right, good. So are we going to change formal language so
Yeah,
that
so
we
s-
have choice,
well, we can- yeah.
non-choice, grade level, in your 12 individuals representing
Well, no,
staff,
the-
parents,
the
and such?
charge, this is what you're
Charge is
approving.
the same.
The char, yeah, now, well, we had a friendly amendment to reorder it and to add, right, to move recommendations and background information to the bottom. A second was to include current research on class size and school size. The third was information regarding demographic projections, like, and housing, and location of housing developments. You know, I don't know how, yeah.
Deep you want it.
How
Because
deep
you
you
could
want to go
also
on
add
that.
the Coverly Community Advisory.
The
Committee.
Coverly Community, yeah.
I'm
report.
not sure I need all this listed in what we vote on, because but do you need this listed on the motion?
Oh, I do want to make sure that choice and non-choice and grade level are included in the 12 individuals. I think
But the
that's-
list of all the
Oh,
materials they're
this-
going to be
oh, no,
getting
no.
to inform their efforts?
No, I don't. I
think you're
I
right.
actually think the ones that are very factual should definitely be in there. The one was just kind of a, given that we hadn't even seen the recommendation in the past, I didn't want to give it any of those overweight. But of
Well, we
course,
can just
share
put
everything.
background information on
Background
previous.
information,
I
sure.
can take out recommendations if you like.
You just understand my concern.
I
I
know,
don't want them
absolutely I
to
do. Right.
overemphasize. Of
Yeah.
course, they should look at everything that's been
Right,
done.
right,
It's
right.
just I don't want it to get them to be constrained by it.
Okay, so we're ready for motion?
I move that we approve the proposed charge for the Enrollment Management Committee.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 5-0. That's great. So
That's it.
we are on to board operations. And why don't we start with Ms. Townsend?
Sure. Ms. Godfrey and I are going to be having our first city school liaison committee the last
February 26th.
February 26th, and we've just gotten our agenda together, and we're looking forward to that committee along with Councilman Pat Bird and
Tom DuBois.
How do you?
Dubois.
Du Bois. And Kathy Mack is our staff liaison, and Cash Ali is the staff liaison from the city, and Betty Munoz is our administrative assistant, and this year it will be held here at the district offices. So we're looking forward to that.
I did the first two trainings on the Masters in Governance program this past weekend. I really recommend the program for you newbies here. And the superintendent. There are a lot of superintendents I got to chat with at the sessions, and it was really interesting conversations about not only foundations of effective governance, but I learned more about not only our policy roles, but our judicial roles. And that was interesting because we haven't done very much of that in my tenure here, but we have done some, and it's interesting that we hold really all three branches, executive, legislative, and judicial, in our hands. And I learned, anyway, more about that and about our role. And anyway, it was worthwhile. Yes, and I recommend you do it. Was at a Hayes Principals Coffee, was at a Principals Coffee at Duvenick. Went to SEC, the Student Executive Council meeting at Gunn, and also got to listen to Rose and students over there. And I think I'm really glad that my other colleagues got to go, and I hope there are other opportunities. I'm sure there will be. It's really wonderful to listen to the students. And I attended my first Los Altos Hills Town Council meeting.
I was waiting for you to get to that.
Last night with Dr. McGee. It was interesting.
Can you share just a little bit?
Yes,
what were
of
the
course.
concerns, just so that we're
no,
aware?
we just had a minute to.
We had 4 minutes, actually.
Sorry, 4 minutes to introduce in sort of an extended open forum moment. Introduce myself as the new liaison, introduce Dr. McGee as our new superintendent. Dr. McGee presented our vision, the goals, lots of things going on. And the mayor, she asked for any comment from city council, and then someone began slamming Palo Alto for bleeding Los Altos Hills residents dry and giving them nothing in return.
It was terribly inflammatory.
It was.
Yeah, it was by design and prepared and to be inflammatory.
It was quite a rant.
And my response was, "Thank you, sir. May I have another?" And walk away with a smile and
actually,
class.
Your response was fabulous, which was, I think that your
I
students
said that
at
first.
Gunn may disagree with you that they're not
Yeah.
getting value by participating in our schools. It was Yeah.
You might say our students at Gunn, Terman, and Nixon.
And Nixon, yes,
Right.
yes. So, but we did meet the nice education liaison, and I think she would be a great addition to our enrollment team in terms of looking at growth. There is a site that we own in Los Altos Hills, the former Fremont Hills Elementary School site, so that could certainly figure into the conversation as well. So, yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was, yeah, interesting. So that's all for me.
Ms. Godfrey.
So I wanted to put just a couple of numbers on what we did last night at Gunn. We did the
Oh,
student
yeah.
forum, and there was more than 60 students, and 40 of them spoke, and it took 2.5 hours, and some super personal stories, lots of great suggestions, and we could have gone on. So they came up afterwards and said, "Let's do this again," and by then I was pretty full.
Could you give me the context for this? I guess I didn't know it was going on, so tell me what it was.
Do you want me to do that?
Yeah.
Rose, who we know, had said, I'm going to bring some students together, and this is not the first time because the student government brought some students together. I want to bring some students together to talk to administration and some leaders, and I'd like some board members to hear what students have to say. So not just what their suggestions are, but also their stories. And it was mostly seniors, but there were students from other grades as well. And I think it's something they're going to do again. And I wouldn't be surprised if you hear it, that Palo's going to do something like that as well. I don't know that we have to be at every one of these, but it was really helpful for us to hear last night. But it's
Did
really
you tell
helpful.
them we were so happy they appeared at our board meeting? I mean, that really is nice, so that the rest of the community gets to hear what they have to say. So I was so delighted to hear all of the ideas.
So they had some really interesting ideas that I actually think not just the administration could take forward, but some of these ideas, the student government, the president of the student government was there too, and he was taking notes on some of these ideas as well.
Thank you. Yeah.
And then the other one I mentioned when we were together 2 weeks ago is the Project Safety Net Collaborative is retrenching again. And I would point out that as a collaborative, there are many partners who are still doing lots of work. Dr. Joshi was here earlier, and he mentioned the work of HERD. So things move forward. The collaborative and the glue that holds it together needs a little bit of little attention. And so there's a subcommittee of folks who are from the old leadership team. It's kind of nice having the band back together, as they say, trying to work on what will go to the Policy and Services Committee and then ultimately to City Council. So I'll keep you up to date as it goes along.
Excellent.
And that's it for me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dauber.
So I had the opportunity to meet with some folks from PI, as that's one of my liaison opportunities, which I had not spent much time. So Kathy Schroeder gave me a fascinating history of fundraising in the district, which was eye-opening. I wasn't aware of much of that history, and also a really well thought out description of the values that guide PI in terms of equal access and the focus on some high impact areas of concentration. And so I had already had a strong positive opinion of PI, but I was really impressed after I had the opportunity to visit with her and the other PI officers.
That's great. Was it a formal? It wasn't the monthly meeting.
It wasn't the monthly meeting. It was a get together with some folks. But I think there's a breakfast which I think is scheduled on the 24th.
So they do have a monthly meeting that you should definitely attend.
Yes, I'm on. I have a bunch of opportunities on my calendar.
The breakfast meeting is a limited, sort of a limited invite, I believe.
Yeah, I'm
There
I'm
is an evening
included in
meeting
that.
once a month that you were definitely invited to. So check in with
In this
Kathy on
very
that.
room.
Okay,
Yeah.
Understand?
Anything else?
that's it. Thank you. Yeah.
Ms. Townsend and I went to Sacramento on Friday.
Oh, yeah.
And we had a full day. You never know what will happen. We went to Cal SSD. That's the suburban schools group that we're part of. And Jeff Frost runs that, and you never know what they're going to talk about. But it ended up being very pertinent for us. And one of the things that was talked about was, isn't it wonderful the ROP funds are now being put into the LCFF? And guess what? There's going to be another pile of funds for the next 3 years that you can apply for. It's competitive. And so for those of you who want to do ROP, you're going to get two things. You're going to get your LCFF money, and you can apply for this competitive thing as long as your district matches every dollar that you apply for. And so I raised my hand.
She was very bold.
I have to say, the other basic aid districts there hardly said a word, but every time I said something, they were like, yes, yes, yes. So I said, well, this is not very good for us because we get no LCFF funds. And so now you just took another $600,000 away from
That's right.
us. And if we want to invest in ROP programs now, it needs to be additional money that we put in. There may be some things that shake out here, but Rick Simpson, who's the speaker, came in and
The speaker's assistant.
I'm sorry, the speaker's assistant for the assembly.
But he holds over after every speaker changes, so he's been there years.
Right, so he is not a huge basic aid supporter. And so when I raised my hand and I said, you know, how's this going to work for basic aid? Because ROP is pretty important for us.
Yep.
And it's pretty important for, I'd say, all the other districts that are basic aid as well. And so I'd hate to see those programs go away. He said, why are you complaining? So there's not a lot of sympathy there. Now, why am I giving you this whole thing? The reason I'm giving you this whole thing, and I'm going to make sure that Kathleen gives you the handouts from the day because there's a lot of good information on different legislation, is because I believe that we need to make sure that we spend time with the other group that represents us, which is SF Squared. And they're about to have a conference.
Third week of March, I believe.
Yeah, in March, and we all got invitations to that. It is in Sacramento, but I encourage us to go, as many of us as possible, because we really need this group to speak for us. Because things are happening fast that we're not being, the other groups aren't going to consider us because they're actually pretty happy with how things are going. I don't want them to be hurt, but I think we need to make sure that our interests are also being taken care of. The other thing that I just wanted to make sure you all know about is that the Santa Clara School Boards Association does a legislative brunch in March. And this is a time we need to get in front of our legislators. I remember a particular person that I talked to when this reserve cap thing was going in. And they said, don't worry, it'll never happen. Okay, so we need to go and talk and make sure that our interests are being expressed. Anyway.
Can I add that that grant program is not for staff, and our ROP is all staff. So even if we could apply for it, it's not going to do us any good. So we have a follow-up meeting, the one we had in Monterey with the county superintendent, February 18th. I'm glad Grace was here tonight because I'll talk with her about that because they do have some money for the county.
And I would like to make sure that our ROP, you're our ROP liaison,
I am.
that Terry is invited to that since she's the ROP.
I'll see,
liaison.
maybe superintendent, so I'll have to, I'll double, I'm not convening, Barry Groves is convening the meeting, so, but.
I won't be offended if it's
Oh,
superintendent.
I will
yeah,
ask,
it's only
okay.
superintendents now, but.
Yeah, but he's, I'll ask him.
I'm a superintendent in my own mind.
Yeah, so we are going into closed session, and we are closing this meeting. Thank you all.